Jamie Lowry.
Chip Bassett.
Jens Bergen.
Okay. Approval of the agenda. Can I have a motion?
We approve the agenda as written.
I'll second.
Okay, as far as discussion goes, we have a packed agenda. The intention was, well, the intention was to limit item 4 to 30 minutes. There are an awful lot of people here for 30 minutes, but we're going to have to figure out a way to tackle that. We have 2 public hearings, 3 pending applications, and we need to get the proposed amendment to the Arundel Land Use Ordinance for animal husbandry finished tonight in order to get it to town meeting in June. So, with that, does anybody else have any comments about the agenda? Okay, all those in favor of approval, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. Minutes, we don't have any minutes, do we? Mr.
No,
Planner?
we just received them and they'll be on the agenda.
Okay, item 3 is something new that I've introduced. It is a short period for citizen comments. It's to be limited to, first off, items which are not on the agenda. Second of all, if someone needs to either be a resident or a property owner in Arundel, and we request that preliminary remarks be limited to 3 minutes. So is there anyone from the public who has questions or comments about something that's on their mind which is not on the agenda? Okay. We'll move on to section 4, the selectmen presentation. I'm reasonably certain that this is an item that most of you guys are here for. We did in advance talk to staff and some of the selectmen about trying to limit this to 30 minutes. Mr. Danilick, do you have do each of the selectmen want to say a short piece on their thoughts about this, and then we perhaps move from there, or how do you?
Well, I don't know whether the other selectmen want to say anything, but we asked to be on the agenda, as you know, because we wanted to have a discussion about road standards and a comprehensive discussion of problems that we're learning about and heard about from others, and wanted to talk about fixes. Now, that's not going to happen in a half hour, certainly. We understand that. You and I have since had conversations. I have conversations with the planner about your agenda kind of being packed with respect to trying to get some voting exchanges ready for town meeting. So we're suggesting, I've already talked to some folks here, that we're going to establish a working group to start to deal with this issue ourselves, the selectmen that is, and plan would be to bring an amendment, use the amendment process and bring it to the board in that process, so we'll have public hearings and so on and so forth. But we're going to work on getting the voting standards changed. We're looking for people who want to participate, have problems with the roads, want to hear about them, so we can address them and fix them if we can. So I think, unless any others want to say anything, I think that's where we are at this point in time.
Okay, the working group would include representation from the planning board, correct?
If any committee, we welcome anybody who wants to participate, certainly. We're looking probably to have meetings on the off Mondays of selectmen's meetings, so that's what we're anticipating doing. So if anybody wants to participate, let Keith know, and we'll start sending some notices around about meetings and work from there.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, just so you know, the process of amending the town ordinances takes time. We have to come up with an amendment, get approval from the planning board. Well, actually, I'm sorry, back up. We have to have the proposed amendment, which we approve, then we have to have a public hearing, then we have to vote to send it to the Board of Selectmen to go over at Board of Selectmen approve the amendment, then it goes to the next town meeting, which is to say, it's not happening next week. I'm not downplaying anybody's concerns about this issue. I've actually had spoken with Mr. Danilek 6 months ago about trying to get a working group together, but there were other priorities of the town, including town hall, which precluded getting that done. So it's not something we want to ignore, it's something we all want to get working on. And so I'm not sure if it would be productive to have a few people talk tonight, or if it would be better to let this working group get started on priorities and have people communicate with the town manager and other representatives who are on the committee, and see if we can't get something constructive done that way.
Mr. Chairman, if I may?
Yes, sir.
I'm the town manager, Keith Trefevin. I just want to let folks know, if you want to be involved in this, these discussions, to email me your information. I will then put together a list. I'll meet with the chair of the selectmen and the selectmen as a whole to decide what off Monday we will begin this process. I'll contact you all individually if you'd like me to, and we'll welcome you to our meeting so we can sit down and discuss this issue and try to get a resolution to it so the planning board can address it, and then we can have the public hearings and move it on to a town meeting vote. So just let me know, contact me, I'd be more than happy to be in contact with you all. Thank you.
Great. Does anyone on the planning board have any comments or questions or concerns on?
Yeah,
Okay.
question. Since we do have this gathering here at this time, if anybody who is related to this, to bring forward some of their concerns so that it can be addressed along the way, if they're not.
Okay, we could do that.
We have the
until-
time, we have the time to do that.
We could do that until 7:30.
Yes, that's what I'm,
And the problem I have is that if
No.
everyone here in the room that I don't, well, I don't.
not everybody's here for
But,
that.
but I understand that, but if everybody had 1 minute, we could be done to 7:30. Not quite sure how to choose who to talk, but we could certainly get started, if that's what the board would like. Do you wanna entertain discussions until 7:30?
I'd like to
People
hear.
come out.
I'm all in favor of that. Mark?
I'm here to listen.
Okay.
Way to be a leader, Mark.
What's that?
Way to be a leader.
Yeah, I'll make sure that happens. Okay, and anybody, well, who wants to start it off? And anybody who does speak, please make sure you identify yourself and give your address at the start of your remarks. Does somebody wanna kick it off? I mean, there are a lot of people here who must have a concern.
My name is Don Holbrook, and I live on the Mountain Road, and we purchased some land from the town, hoping to give our kids a piece of property. Now we have this discussion about problems with the right-of-way possibly, whether it's town road, whether it's private road, what are the upgrades. So, yeah, I'd be interested in being on the committee. We tried it another way, going up our driveway, and it just was not cost effective. So now we're looking for other options.
Well, what specifically in the ordinance is what is causing the problems that's in the ordinance?
You tell me. It's the town ordinance.
I'm Troy Barker, and I would have a couple things to say about that. I just did a very expensive road to give my boys a piece of land out back as well. And I think one of the issues that everyone here would have, I don't think anybody has a problem with the width of the road, with the safety turnarounds for emergency vehicles, or with the depth of gravel. But in a lot of other towns right next to us, I did one in Kennebunk, 1,800 feet long, there's a big distinction between private road and town road. And in Arundel, there's none.
There-
I still had to have my
there is-
road-
There is for fewer than 8 lots, but yeah.
It's, right, fewer than 8 lots, that's big. But to give somebody a lot or two that their family lives on and owns on, and for them not to have to spend 150 grand to build a road to get to a free piece of land, it's not worth it. And like in Kennebunk, for instance, they got tough road standards, Kennebunk, for subdivisions. But you can build a private road 1,800 feet long. 'Cause the town's never gonna maintain it. It just needs to be safe for emergency vehicles. Proper gravel depth, proper width. And you don't need state spec gravel, you don't have to have it engineered. So there's a few little things that make a big difference.
Okay, I'm, forgive me, I'm not an absolute expert on how the ordinance works. I've been on board for 3 years and there's a lot in it. But my understanding is that there are, the street ordinance applies to anything for more than 8 lots. But under 8 lots, there are
Not true.
We ran into that where, my name's Karen Holbrook, I
Yeah,
also live on
yeah,
Mountain
yeah.
Road. We ran into that, we have a house on a driveway. We wanted to put 2 lots, 2 houses. And we had to have a road engineered and the elevation, the grade was much too high.
Not
We had
cost
to,
effective.
we had to put in either a hammerhead or a cul-de-sac to have, so we could turn around a 100-foot ladder truck, which doesn't make any sense to me, because we don't even have something like that in this town. And now, we purchased the land that the town owned, and we had approached the town to ask if we could go through there without any issues to give our kids, because that adjoins our property,
To use that as a right of way.
to use that as a right-of-way. And now we're running into, do we have to put a cul-de-sac, do we have to widen the
Okay, but,
road?
There are 2 sets of standards. There is the street ordinance that's for town roads and the private way ordinance. The problem, hold on, what this committee needs to address is the private way ordinance, which is what both of you all are talking about.
Right, because we're being held to street ordinances, which isn't right. It's basically the same thing, we're being held to an ordinance that it would be a public way. And that's not the
Okay.
case.
Which would never be maintained by the town.
Right. It's a private way. And there are tons of them in Arundel, a ton of them. I mean, we live down the road that people can't even get up their driveways. And there are more than 3 houses up there, but nothing's ever been addressed for that. It just doesn't make any sense to me. We just want to give our kids a piece of land, keep them in Arundel, keep tax dollars in
Ms.
Arundel.
Holbrook, respectfully, we understand a lot more about your situation than other people's, okay? I'm not dismissing it at all, but
I just don't want this to go on for a year before it gets to a vote, to go wherever. I just want it resolved. We've been going around this for so long. We just want it resolved. Just want
It
to
just
get
seems very prolonged.
are there any other, sorry?
It just seems very prolonged, the whole situation, yeah,
Well,
like very long.
I understand that. It's not, the process is not something that we don't have the ability to change it. It is what it is. We have town meeting form of government. Literally, town meeting is our legislatures. And so we have to follow the process to get there. And I can assure you that the board will do its utmost to get there as quickly as we can. Typically, in the past few years, we've been having special town meetings. We've had, Tom, how many special town meetings have we had since the last regular town meeting? 3? Or only 2?
2. Yeah, I think there's been 2.
Okay, but there've been 2 since June of 2017. So, I'm very hopeful that we're not talking about waiting until June of 2018 to get this addressed, okay? Any other specific concerns that people have about what the rules that apply to private ways? I mean, Roger, do you have any comments?
I got a bunch of them.
Well, can you give us some short constructive comments?
Jim can back me up on this about how much time staff spends talking about private way standards. People ask questions about this, they come into a staff review, and you go through item by item what they have to do. The standards vary from one, which is a 12-foot wide driveway. As soon as there's two, it has to be engineered at 15 feet. As soon as you go to 3, the standard changes again. This is part of the problem. One guy that goes in and buys the second one has to improve the road all the way to the very start of it. I mean, there's a lot of things that need to be addressed in this, but we spend a ton of time answering questions all the time about road standards. Jim can confirm this. Speak up.
I can confirm that. We spend probably 8 hours a week discussing roads. That's all staff, myself, planner, Roger, tax assessor gets involved. There's a lot to it. It's very time consuming. Putting together a board to review it's probably a good idea.
There are a whole lot of you all here. Yes, sir.
Well, one of the other issues, for instance, is just for a quick point. I know I've talked with Tad about this before, not Rad. You know, but it might be a good name for him. The fire department doesn't necessarily like the cul-de-sacs. Public Works Director doesn't like cul-de-sacs. Tad told me he didn't really like cul-de-sacs, but that's what you gotta do. You can't do a hammerhead in Arundel.
Yeah, you can.
How come you made me do a cul-de-sac then?
Because you were over, the limitation for that is 3 lots. 3 lots on a private way. Then after that, you have
So,
to, because the assumption
that's
is
an
it
issue.
might continue.
But there's nothing wrong with a hammerhead big enough to turn around a fire truck.
No,
I mean,
there isn't.
the highway departments hate them. The cul-de-sacs are crazy. It makes your frontages messed up on your lots, and they're a bitch to get around. And I don't know why Arundel couldn't have a hammerhead like every other town around.
Well, if I could address it, it's a good question. You certainly can do that. If you're developing land, though, it's a real advantage to you. Because the frontage on a cul-de-sac drops
less.
from 200
It's reduced.
to 75 feet. So you can put more lots on West Road as a result. And that's why a lot of people do it. Yeah, it's easy for the average delivery truck to go in. But what it does is it gives people an opportunity to put more lots with less road as a result. That's why a lot of guys use it.
Not in a case like mine. I wasn't doing no more
No,
lots.
he didn't want to do anything.
And the cul-de-sac's right at the end,
Yeah.
and it's useless because I don't have no more lots there, but I still had to do it.
And that would be the same case for us.
Yeah, I think you had a hammerhead in the design you got.
It was either or.
Yeah. Well, I think the cul-de-sac I was suggesting for your property down off of Bergeron was actually a situation where you wouldn't have to build as much road, that you wouldn't have to build 200 feet of road for every lot. Instead, you only had to have that cul-de-sac, and then you'd be able to pull 3 or 4 lots right off of that because it's 75 feet. So it can be a real design advantage.
It can be, yeah.
Yeah. And that's, just wanted to make sure that's
Yep.
good. But should it go up higher than that if somebody wants to do a hammerhead? Terrific.
I have another
Ms.
issue.
Holworthy?
With us having to access, to put 2 driveways or whatever off the cul-de-sac, we can't go in and have, I guess, I don't know how I want to say it.
Right away through it.
A right of way through it and have 2 driveways in there?
Yeah, you could.
We could do it that way and not have to do a cul-de-sac?
No, you
At
do
the
the
end?
you do the cul-de-sac. If you want to just do the hammerhead and have 1 driveway, sure, but what you need.
But what do they have there now? They have nothing.
Well, the point that I was trying to make is it allows you to put in more lots than you would be able to put in if you just built it, just dead-ended it. You only have 1 lot at the dead end. With a cul-de-sac, you can put 3 or 4 lots off that. In this situation, you wanted to be able to give additional lots to your kids. So instead of building more road, you build a cul-de-sac
We're
and
looking
then
for
knock
two
off.
lots, we're looking to put two lots in
Two
there.
lots will work fine.
Respectfully,
Okay.
I understand that you have very specific concerns. But we've got limited time tonight. What I'd really like to do is get more people to speak up about specific things in the ordinance that they feel are onerous. Candidly, I've run into the 100-foot ladder truck issue myself. And I have feelings about that that I'll keep to myself for the moment. But are there other specific requirements? Building roads, hold on, I think I've started just a second. Are there other specific requirements that, specifically contractors here, I mean, there's a reason I asked Mark, for your thoughts was, you know, you're building roads.
Yeah, I agree with everything that Roger Castro just said, 100%.
Well, but what Roger said was that he spends a whole lot of time
Yeah,
hassling with
and
it.
there's a lot of time spent on private driveways that doesn't need to be spent. Shouldn't be spent.
Well, would you like to be on the working group?
I definitely will.
Okay, good.
Through the chair.
Yes, sir.
Another thing that we've addressed or had to come addressed is an issue called sidewalks. I think that should be addressed also at the same time.
I couldn't agree with you more, Mr. King.
That's why I'm bringing it up.
Okay, so we've got hammerheads, cul-de-sacs, the sort of stacked rules, 1 house, 2 house, 3 house, 4 house, 6 house, 8 house. The 9th house does something else.
No outhouses.
Mr. Chairman, if I may?
Yeah.
A couple of things that I think that we'll address in the subcommittee will be gifted lots, family back lots, how to access those, what the size of those should be, if they should be part of the discussion. I think that a lot of people here this evening and are concerned about those family pieces that they have that are large tracts that they would like to be able to gift to somebody and how we're going to address that. So my research of some of our neighboring communities have showed that there's a bunch of creative ways that they're doing that. I'll certainly share that with the select board when we sit down and with everybody else.
Okay. Any other comments on private ways and the street ordinance? Go ahead, Roger.
Well, it kind of goes outside this a little bit, but it involves staff review. And we spend a lot of time, like I said, on this. But on the staff review, according to the ordinance, there's 4 people on that. I mean, at times, the staff review doesn't always fully agree with each other on what should be. So one of the things that I would suggest that be changed is add a 5th person. Doesn't have to be a named person, it has to be a position person. Could be the assessor, could be someone that's already on staff, you don't have to hire anybody, but it should be 5 people at least. It's come up before, and
You're
as soon as,
you're saying you're running into deadlocks?
we do, and staff review can't agree on it, it goes to planning board, and I'm hearing you guys are so booked that you really don't wanna deal with that.
That's not a question of not wanting to deal with it, Roger.
Well, it's been a problem for a long time, and to get a half an hour, quite frankly, is, I'd like to see where the planning board stands on the ordinance the way it is, but you probably don't want to answer that question. It's been submitted before for change, and you guys, as a planning board, said you like it the way it is. There's a lot of people being hurt by this, and there's no need of it.
Phil, do you have any comments on roads and private ways at all?
Well, we have customers all the time calling who wanna build a house. And one in particular is gonna upgrade 300 feet of road to town standards that they don't even own, they wanna drive on it, their lot is beyond that. So building the road is gonna cost them half as much as building a house. They just can't do it. We have another customer that wants to pull permit. They've got a nice paved road. It's been there for, I wanna say 20+ years. We built it that long ago. Been over it with tri-axle trucks, over and over to do house lots in there. The road is fine, but it's a little bit too narrow. So they're having a problem putting more houses in. I think it's like 2 or 3 feet narrower than what the town spec calls for. That's a problem for those folks. The road has been there like 20+ years.
Well, now, that sounds to me, and maybe I'm wrong about the process, but that sounds to me like something where the property owner should be able to come to the planning board and ask for a waiver.
That doesn't work.
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah.
I think that's a moot issue, that road. Jim, am I not correct in that?
Let's not, I don't wanna get into specifics, Ted, okay? No, I think he presented an example, and I don't wanna debate the specific issue, but it seems to me that one of the problems that we've got, and this is more than just roads, Tad, one of the problems we have is that it's very unclear or completely opaque as to what the planning board has the power to waive and what the planning board does not. And the situation Mr. Labby just described sounds to me like something that the planning board should be able to look at and consider the pros and cons, and maybe the cons outweigh the pros, but we ought to at least be able to look at it. Do other planning board members feel the same way?
Something, I would say it's something we ought to be able to do, but I don't know if we are able to right now.
Our jurisdiction doesn't allow us to do that right now.
Well, and if that's the case, maybe that's, maybe that should be a central part of this conversation, to fix the ordinance so that we do have the power to waive these things. What do you guys think about that? Do we have to?
I think that if we entertain changes to the street design ordinance, it should be inclusive of all of that. The standards to review process, the whole 9 yards.
Also too, at the same time, a particular road like this, it was, how long has it been in effect? Is it grandfather?
Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes. Yeah, I know. Just about to point that out. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I'm sure that this is
A start.
It's a start, and believe it or not, it's a good start. I'm very grateful to all of you for showing up. I hope you don't feel that your time was wasted. It certainly wasn't, and it's noticed. It's important that we get input from the public. The mere fact that you guys came tells us how important it is for us to move on this. As I said, I did try to get this started 6 months ago and went nowhere. And that was not the planning board's fault. But we will get moving forward on this, okay? Thank you very much for coming. Okay, I am now going to move to item 5. We have 2 public hearings. Hey, Keith, you're not gonna hang around for the rest of the fun and games?
What's that?
You're not gonna stay around for the rest of the fun and games?
It's in your capable hands, Mr. Chairman. Good night.
That way there will be no, do house.
Yeah. Oh, wait.
Or also at the same time ask for some of the selectmen to stay. Through the chair.
Yeah.
Have some of the other ones stay. Selectmen or the town manager, so there's no misinterpretations of anything. You know, but they don't. Their meetings are shorter than ours.
Okay, let's get rolling here. Item number five public hearings. Our first public hearing is for Motherland Classic Cars. This is a major conditional use application. Have we already deemed this application complete?
Yes, you have.
Yeah, okay. Okay, I didn't know why that was on the agenda. This is a request to convert a 9,900 square foot automobile storage facility into a public auto showroom. Remove 425 square feet of an existing building and construct a public promenade with raised seating and reorganize site parking to accommodate increased public parking as well as display parking on a approximately 4.9 acre site located at 2564 Portland Road, tax map 2, lot 1 in the PI district. Motorland LLC is the owner and applicant, and this should read Sandra Gay is the applicant's agent, is that correct? Yes. Okay. So you are not Ralph tonight either. With that, let me open the public hearing. Are there people who have comments or questions in the public about this project? Well, okay, we'll start with the presentation.
So I'll just go over the project quickly and then Paul will go over the site plan for you. Again, my name is Cindy Bay. I'm here tonight representing Motorland Properties. And as you know, Motorland Properties received a conditional use approval from this board in 2016 for the construction of a 60 by 210-foot storage building with parking and loading areas and drainage improvements. At the time, the property contained an automobiles and service facility approved by the planning board on October 27, 2011, occupied by a classic auto dealership. Additionally, the planning board approved a cold storage building on December 10, 2013. Between then and now, the business has grown and continues to grow, and they require additional interior and exterior display for their vehicles. The application proposes the use of that approved storage building for a seasonal customer vehicle display area, approximately May through October. The remainder of the year, the building will remain as it is and continue to be used for vehicle storage. In addition, the proposal includes significant site improvements, including increased landscaping, removal of a 425 square foot existing building, reorganization of the existing display and parking areas, and an attractive courtyard area with tables and plantings. The site received stormwater permit by rule from Maine DEP in September 2017, and while adding another 1,502 square feet for this area, the project will not disturb any additional previously approved area. We had a meeting with this board back on March 8th to review the plan. The board did find the plan complete at that time. We left the meeting with a list of requirements that the planning board wanted to see on a revised plan. And those items have been taken care of mostly. With respect to one of the requirements is a letter from the fire marshal. That application is submitted. The fire marshal's office is delayed in some of its permitting. It's just backed up. David Graham, who's the architect here, has been in direct contact consistently with the fire marshal and with your fire chief. Everything's moving forward, but we're just waiting for that permit. The lighting peer review has been taken care of. There were a couple of comments on Tad's memo, requesting a couple of conditions on that, and everything's fine with that. The site plan has been revised to show the additional pavement in the front parking area and the 18 inches of pavement in the rear parking area. In Tad's memo, there was also a comment about the construction estimate that has been provided to Tad. I apologize for not getting that to you sooner. I have read it. And I should have got
You got it today, that's important.
Got it today, thank you. One of the items that came up last time also was the back door in the building that had an emergency exit on it. The fire chief actually didn't want that door there, or at least didn't want the fire exit sign on it. The board wasn't sure about that and wanted us to consult with the fire chief. As of today, and I guess the fire chief left, I spoke with him earlier, it appears that we're going to close off that back door entirely. Just leave the two two ingress and egress exits are far enough apart to meet the requirements for two exits from the building. That is being also amended in the fire marshal's application. The fire chief said he's fine with that as long as the fire marshal is fine with it. David Graham has spoken with the fire marshal, and I think everybody is okay with it, but we need to still wait for the fire marshal's permit. One other item which I just became really aware of today.
Can I interrupt, I'm sorry, can I interrupt you? Could someone please show us where the doors are that?
There's a passing 3-foot door here, and there's another passing 3-foot door right in adjacent to this building right here. So they got 2 3-foot door exits.
Both on the same side of the building?
Yes.
Okay.
But the
Sorry,
building was also sprinkled too.
Right, and that was, I think, something the fire chief hadn't been aware of originally, is that the building is sprinklered. The fire marshal may be asking for a Knox box on the building, which is fine. So one thing that I just became aware of today, apparently when the project was originally approved, that the building in the back, the planning board had asked for landscaping back there. It's already landscaped with crushed rock, which was a part of the original approval and design for drainage. As it comes off the roof, it goes into the crushed rock. So we'd like to be able to leave that there. That was expensive putting that there in the first place, if the board is okay with that.
Are you talking about the retention pond?
No,
right in the back of the building.
Behind this
Back of the
building.
first building.
Behind this building here, it's crushed rock, so that when the water comes off the roof, it goes down to the crushed rock. And that was part of the original plan that was approved apparently in the design, and so that's all been, you know.
It was done.
I don't recall them in the landscaping requirement.
The crushed rock, I don't know if it was,
No, I'm not talking about the crushed rock.
Oh.
I'm saying, I don't recall any discussion.
I think this
about
actually
something
was from a
else.
memo, Tad's first memo, and it said something about that, wanted to see a loam and seed back here. But we don't want a loam and seed over the crushed rock that's there for the drainage. So we'd like to be able to actually remove that from the plan. I think we're all set. Other than that, Paul, if you want to just, if there's anything else? Oh, maybe show where you made the changes in the pavement, or,
I think the plan that I submitted last time, I think still showed 2 parking spaces along Route 1, because we were hard pressed to want to let those go. However, this plan we have this evening, I actually removed those 2 parking spaces. I have a revision saying that I took them out, so we can put this project behind us and move forward. And that's basically the only change I made to the plan, is I took out those 2 parking spaces. And of course, you saw the previous amendment I made to add pavement here and add pavement here, so we get the parking requirements met.
Okay. Are there any members of the public that have any questions, comments, or concerns about this application? If so, speak now.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
there was a letter addressed to the planning board I think that should also be noted in the public hearing that it was complimenting Motorland on what they have done from, Mrs. Grondin, I think it was. Gondon, excuse me for
Okay,
not
good,
thinking.
good point. Okay, I'm mystified personally by the fire door, by anyone wanting to remove an existing exit from a building, but I'm not gonna argue.
And I
with the
can
fire
explain
chief.
it a little bit. In order for the fire chief to be comfortable with that exit, we would have to install a ramp and pavement down along the berm and out to the road, and then we start getting into coverage issues again. It just became more of an issue than seemed reasonable to deal with, and because the fire chief was okay with the
So
other
the fire
two.
marshal thinks no door is better than a door?
We would be happy with leaving it there, but, you know, and putting,
Yeah, like I said, I'm not
Yeah.
gonna argue with the fire chief, that's just,
Yeah.
makes no
It's a
sense.
fire
Fire marshal,
marshal.
it
Yeah.
makes no sense to me.
so, yeah.
Okay, I mean, he's the one who told him to put it in the first place. Yeah.
I mean, and one thing, one possibility is to, let David talk to the fire chief and the fire marshal. And one thing we had come up with is maybe just marking employees only, so that, and, don't make emergency, just mark it employees only. The fire chief and fire marshal don't want people exiting there if there's an emergency, because especially handicapped accessibility and things like that, but if there's another way to keep the door there.
For public safety, it seems to me more exits are better. If you can do something, do it. If you can't, just do
Because
it.
originally,
So the door's gonna still be there, and in an emergency, people
No,
still
no,
use them.
Tom,
Going around.
They're closing it
Oh, I
out.
thought it was gonna,
No.
you leave it for
No,
employees only.
No.
Okay,
Well,
I'm
that was
sorry.
just a thought, but
Oh.
between the fire chief and the fire marshal, they seem to prefer that
We
it
don't
not
have
be
the
there.
sidebars.
Well, they can leave the door, but they can't put fire exit door.
When Paul and I met with the Arundel Fire Chief, that was his suggestion, which was leave the door, because intuitively that makes sense, but take the emergency exit signage off. So in the case of an emergency, somebody wouldn't mistake that or go to that when there's clearly the two required exit doors already in place. That are
And-
compliant.
Yeah, and we can have David still go back and talk to the fire marshal about that and see if there's some way to do that, but if not, then that door will get removed.
through the chair.
Yes.
I think if I remember correctly, that particular door, there is quite a drop-off
Yes, that's the problem.
from being considered ground level to, if it was an emergency, would become a cluster. Just for point of interest.
I think that's the fire marshal's concern.
I mean, just for point of interest, if I'm recalling correctly.
Yeah, it's, you walk out
Yeah.
and.
Getting into
Well, yeah, let-
discussion
let-
from pending
yeah,
application
let's-
and not a
Yeah,
public hearing.
let's, okay, I would agree with Jamie's point. We're in the pending application stage. So, as far as the public hearing goes, unless someone has some comments, questions, I'm gonna call the public hearing closed at 8:46, or 7:46 rather. Okay, now we have a second public hearing for Ledge Cliff Meadows subdivision. This is Tad, what does it say, preliminary subdivision plan?
I don't know, it's final.
It's fine.
Public hearing is final.
Okay. This is- And, okay. I'm sorry, Ledge Cliff, let me start over. Ledge Cliff Meadows subdivision plan, proposal to subdivide a 6-lot cluster subdivision plan on a 20.77 acre parcel located on the current Ledge Cliff Drive, formerly tax map 4, lots 24 and 25D in the AR district. Access to the re-subdivided lots will be provided by a 1,340-foot long commercial road called Ledge Cliff Drive and relocated on the adjacent 30.48 acre parcel. Tax map 4, lot 23 in the ARD district. Philip Labby is the owner of map 4 lots 24 and 24B, and the applicant, Paul Gadboy, PP, is the applicant's agent. I hereby open the public hearing. Why, Mr. Gadboy, why don't you make a presentation on this one?
I'll keep it short, because I'm not sure there's anyone from the public hearing that really wants to listen to me tonight, but Phil has come up with an agreement with the adjacent landowner, which is BDF Holdings, Ben Fitzpatrick, who's here this evening. And they've come up with an agreement to actually construct a road that would benefit Phil's property and BDF Holdings properties. Currently, Phil has a road design that comes through up approximately the old Ledgecliff Drive location, comes through his site and accesses the rear of his property. This will eliminate, actually make one road serve both properties, so it will be a lot more beneficial for the town and the applicant. So that's pretty much in a nutshell, and I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Okay, is there anyone from the public who has any questions, comments, or concerns regarding this project? Anyone on the board want to make comments which would not be appropriate for a later discussion of the pending application? Okay, hearing none, I will call the public hearing closed at 7:49. And move on to pending applications, Motor Lane Classic Cars. Major conditional use application. I'm not going to read this again, if that's acceptable. And we can, as Jamie correctly pointed out, we can reopen the discussion. Why don't we start the first step here is to determine whether or not the application is complete. Is that correct, Mr. Planner?
No, sir, you've already determined it to be complete.
It is determined complete, okay. I don't understand why that continues to be on the agenda. So the application has been determined to be complete. There was a lighting plan peer review. Let's just go through these things. Does anybody on the board have comments or questions about the lighting plan review?
I didn't see the review. I know I was in discussion, but
My only question is if the peer review brought up the issue of timers, dimmers, or sensors for unneeded lighting at night. I don't know, would have automatic timers or
So, yeah, I think that one of the comments in Tad's memo was that have a dimmer switch, and spoken with the lighting, the landscape architect who designed lighting, and he said that that's fine. And there was also a comment in Tad's memo about a 15-degree tilt angle in the courtyard should be reset at 90-degree angle, which frankly totally confused me, Tad, but like I said, that's fine too.
Straight down.
She keeps explaining this. But, so those two can be conditions.
Well, the dimmer switch is for, these are all LED lights, and they're specifically designed to be dimmed down during non-use periods. So it's just like the ones in the parking lot. So, you know, when they're not being used, they can be dimmed down and not throw as much light.
would that be automated?
Can be, yeah. And the ones with mirrors are automated, so.
Were you guys planning on, have you gotten that far in terms of whether you're gonna have a timer system to turn the lights off at night?
We've never turned the lights on at night. For us, it's more secure to keep the property dark.
Shut them off, that would be better. I pay for the lights.
Okay, does anyone else have any comments or questions about the light plan peer review? All right, moving on to fire doors. I'll just state my position first, if I may, which is, if you can figure out a way to keep the door there, it just seems like a common sense idea if you can't make the fire marshal happy. Does anyone else have any comments or different approach to it?
I would second that.
Yeah, until for almost 10,000 square foot building, it's only 2 doors.
And they're both on the same side?
Right.
Yeah.
But-
I'd rather
but
go out
to-
with a
to-
bank full of snow than.
Through that, turn out, the other
Thank
thing
you.
is that there will be vehicles in there, okay? And the nature of these vehicles, are not like a rust old bucket. I mean, they may be a shiny rusty old bucket, worth a lot more. So they don't need the public, if they're in there, to exit or hang around through that door. So, I mean, but I do agree that the size of the building might need something, but it is not in my guidance of being a fire marshal to answer those questions.
I can respond to this just a little bit. So part of the plan, I know David sends the plan to the fire marshal, is he actually comes up with an exit floor plan of how, you know, so the cars have, you know, there's a pathway for exiting. But also, the building is sprinklered inside, so that would help also, obviously, besides those front exits.
Yeah, like I said, that's the first time we as the planning board has heard that it was sprinkled.
Sprinklered and
I
apparently.
mean, it's never been delegated to us beforehand that it was actually done.
Any further discussion on fire?
Yeah, I have a
the fire
question
door?
in regards
Go
to
ahead,
doors. Chip,
Go ahead.
from the threshold to the grade, is there a major step going down?
In the front, there isn't.
No, I'm talking in the back with this.
That existing door
It's
where,
about 2 steps.
2 steps? Okay.
There are no.
It's not fancy stuff, but there's a couple of,
Enough to meet the building code, if the door stays there.
probably yes,
Okay.
Put it a different way. You'll make sure it meets the building code.
yes. Right.
Well, that's why I was asking.
Right, Paul?
If the door's nice.
Yeah, we can look at this rises and step requirements. But it's only 2
Okay.
steps, doesn't need a railing.
Let's do that, make Jim's job easier, okay? All right, can I move on to surety? All right, surety. There is the proposed improvements. It's my understanding that the applicant's agent has provided the town planner with an updated cost of the remaining portion of the project. And I assume that we are discussing
How much?
only the incremental improvements which have not been made yet. Is that correct?
Well, the estimate is for the work that's to be done.
Right.
So
That's
the
what
whole
we think.
thing.
I just want to be crystal clear on that, okay. And the town planner is recommending a tri-party agreement or a letter of credit. Anybody on the board, I'll be honest with you, this is something that's bothered me since before I got on the board. There seems to be considerable confusion about what a letter of credit is, or what a surety bond is, or what a performance bond is, and, but we're not going to resolve that issue tonight. But does anyone on the board have any comments or questions about the surety policy, or what kind of requirements we should impose on the applicant?
I don't know if we should impose, or we have allow the option up to the applicant to do either a bond or a letter of credit. We don't have to require one or the other, do we? So whichever way works best for them, as long as it covers the cost, I'm all right.
That through, that's not up to us per se, that's between the town and the applicant.
Right, in my mind, that's a staff issue.
As long as Tad and the
If
applicant
that-
have
if
worked
that's,
out.
if that's acceptable to the applicant.
Yes, it is, so that would be obviously given to the town before a building permit was issued, my understanding.
Okay.
The issue is for the full amount, I mean, the amount that you gave me was 200,000. So that would be for the full amount? Okay.
That includes paving, landscaping, lights,
Everything. Yep. Okay.
okay? Okay, so we have been given two alternatives by staff as to how to proceed here. One is, and I've successfully stapled two things together, pardon me. One is to approve the plan contingent with the conditions that the three deficiencies noted above, which aren't deficiencies anymore. Well, we can debate that. Or the board may require the applicant to submit a cost estimate and surety instrument, the egress path strategy and fire marshal approval at the next meeting. Gentlemen, would somebody make a motion for us to consider, please?
I'll throw it out there, I'll do, the option two, that we allow them to submit all that at the next meeting, but, I don't know if we're ready to, we can't approve the plan until we have that in, can we?
I think we can.
Okay.
I think option one is, from my point of view, well, we don't, I wish we had a motion to discuss, but we don't. My point of view, the lighting plan peer review is done. The staff has made a suggestion, the applicant has readily agreed, so that's done.
Yep.
Item number two, the fire doors, I think I proposed something that was agreeable to the applicant and agreeable to the board, so that's done. The surety policy, I think we've all just agreed, is something that staff can work with the applicant's agents.
Okay, so maybe I'm hung up with the fire doors, which way are we going with that?
That's up to the fire marshal.
We're leaving it up to the.
The fire marshal, whatever they.
The applicant will make a good faith effort to try to come up with a way to leave the door there that satisfies the fire marshal. If they can't do that, then the door goes.
Okay. Well,
Is that accurate and acceptable to you guys?
Yes.
Okay, so let me withdraw my motion and make another one that we approve this optional with those contingencies. Really, it comes down to the surety and the, whatever with the door, fire marshal.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion with a second. Is there any further discussion?
Yes, yes, that we can proceed along the way, but on the contingency that a occupancy permit or anything else will not be given until everything is completed and is stated here.
They don't get a building permit until.
Occupancy permit.
No, they don't get a building permit until the surety policy is
They're
in.
not rebuilding anything.
Yeah, it's been 20,000.
The building's a lot. Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
if I may, perhaps the board would like to look at the last page of the proposed findings of fact, because that's some of the conditions that you're
okay.
struggling with right now, that you might want to deal with this prior to reading the findings of fact and decide which of these is appropriate, which is
So we, Tad, I missed that, you saying we should go through the finding of fact?
Well, you're gonna have to read the findings of fact
Yeah.
into the record. However, the things we're discussing right now, I think are summarized in the conditions of approval on the last page.
Okay.
And if we discuss those right now, then we can eliminate some, or eliminate all, or amend them now before we can read it and then stop, and then we should do it all at once.
Okay, so I'm sorry, do you have another copy of this document? I do? Oh, I'm glad you can keep track of my stuff. See it right here. Okay, so before we proceed with the approval of the motion, I think that planner has made a good suggestion. Let's see, just skimming through this.
No, number two.
One, so,
We can add words to that.
Because in number two's case, it's either, if the fire marshal will require them to create the path, or we can put in there, in the event that the fire marshal requires the north corner, then a clear path between the north one and the show one must be created.
and permits.
You do it that way. I don't think the fire marshal is going to require the north pole, so.
I would say that it only if the fire marshal requires it.
So, yeah, let's
If
try to
required.
wordsmith that when we get to it.
Okay.
Okay.
So I think the rest of it.
Okay. Item number 3 is gone.
Yep.
Address that.
The 2 parking spaces at the center island.
Right.
The signing of the employee spaces and the customer spaces. Wow, those 5 coniferous trees need to be planted. The ones on your plan,
Yeah,
okay? All right.
yeah, that was from phase 2.
That was from
Okay,
phase 2.
so,
Yeah, it's on the plan.
I know, I saw it. I just wanted to remind everybody of that.
They probably have that in the budget.
I think so.
okay, so process-wise,
So
do we now proceed to the findings of fact?
Yes.
I think we need to.
You got it.
Well, we have to still,
Do we want to wordsmith that?
We've had a motion to approve in a second, so I think it's appropriate.
Okay.
Next statement of view, starting with whereas.
Okay. I love reading these. Whereas, on February 8th, 2018, the Arundel Planning Board received a conditional use pre-application from Motorland Properties LLC to convert a 9,900 square foot automobile storage facility into a public auto showroom, to remove 425 square feet of an existing building and construct a public courtyard with raised seating, and to reorganize site parking to accommodate increased public parking as well as display parking on a 4.9 acre site located at 2564 Portland Road, tax map 2, lot 1 in the BI district. Whereas, contingent upon preliminary comments provided by the planning board and the town planner, the applicant made several changes to the plans and application and resubmitted to the board. Whereas on March 15, 2018, the planning board deemed the resubmitted application complete and scheduled a public hearing for April 12, 2018. The failure of the newspaper to publish the legal notice, upon failure of the newspaper to publish the legal notice, the public hearing was rescheduled to April 26, 2018. Whereas on April 26, 2018, the planning board conducted a public hearing in conformance with the land use ordinance section 9.7.f.1. And whereas the Arundel Planning Board has determined the following findings of fact and notice of decision. Findings of fact: 1, the owner of the property is Motorland Properties LLC. No change in that, correct?
Correct.
The property is located at 2564 Portland Road, tax map 2, lot 1 in the BI district. The property currently contains an automobile sales and service facility initially approved by the Arundel Planning Board on October 27, 2011, and currently occupied by Classic Auto dealership doing business as Motorland. The applicant received an approval from the planning board on July 14, 2016 to construct a 60-foot by 210-foot multi-use metal storage building on the site to provide heated storage for automobiles, a service facility containing 4 bays with lifts, and a parts and office area. 5, the applicant subsequently proposed to convert 9,900 square feet of the existing storage facility into an automobile showroom open to the public, remove 425 square foot of an existing building, and construct a public courtyard with raised seating to be used as an exterior showroom and public entry for customers viewing the classic autos in the new showroom. 6, the new facility will be serviced by electric, telephone, and cable and water hookups, already providing service to the original building. 7, additional lighting is confined to the courtyard area consists of 4-watt uplights and 16-foot cutoff LED pole lights as depicted on plans prepared by MBLA Inc. dated 2/21/18 with subsequent revisions. A peer review of the lighting plan was prepared by J&M Lighting Design and dated 4/24/18. 8, a stormwater study prepared by Paul Gadboy PE dated 2/21/18 verifies that the proposed revisions to the site will not increase post-development peak stormwater runoff from the site. The applicant has received a PBR stormwater permit from the Department of Environmental Protection on 9/12/17. 9, erosion control, drainage, paving, and parking lot layouts are depicted on the plan set entitled Second Amended Site Plan for Motorland dated 12/16/17 with revisions through 3/28/18, 28, 26, and
No.
prepared,
28.
oh, sorry, 3/28, prepared by Paul Gadboy PD. Conformance with conditional use criteria. After due review and consideration, the Arundel Planning Board has determined the application to be in conformance with the criteria of section 9.7.h of the Arundel Land Use Ordinance as follows. 9.7h1, that the use is compatible with and similar to the general categories of uses of neighboring properties. The proposed use is an expansion of an existing permitted use in the BI district and is consistent in scale and use with other uses in the surrounding neighborhood and the district.
Second.
Do we really have to vote on these things separately? What is, I'm sorry, what is the point of voting on these things separately?
The town attorney wants us to do it that way.
Even for site plan? I thought that was only for subdivision.
No, it's for site plan. In subdivision, we don't follow every single one of those conditions, otherwise we'd be there all night.
I'm sorry, Chip.
No problem. Did I have a motion?
Got a motion.
And a second.
I got a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. 9.7.8.2, I got a list of lawyers. The use is consistent with the comprehensive plan and the anticipated future development of the neighborhood in that the comprehensive plan specifies automobile sales and service facilities to be appropriate in, and the use is consistent with the long-range plan for the BI district to serve as Arundel's premier industrial and business zone. Motion, please.
Move to approve.
Second.
We have motion moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion carries. 9.7.H3, that there is adequate and safe pedestrian and vehicular access to and into the site to accommodate anticipated traffic to and from the use. The proposed use will not generate significant trip generation, and the proposed plan will reduce pedestrian vehicle conflicts on the property. No changes are proposed to occur to driveway access or internal circulation. Do I have a motion?
Yeah.
Second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion carries. 9.7.H4, that there is adequate water supply and sewage disposal available to service the use. The existing septic system is determined by the code enforcement officer to have sufficient capacity to accommodate the additional customers that will be supported by the facility and the existing car wash facility. Existing water supply on the site is sufficient to meet the needs of the proposed new structure. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, motion is moved and seconded.
Discussion,
Discussion?
yes. So I think we should note in there that we have all that, but it's within 1,000 feet of a fire hydrant. Front note.
I'm sorry, what's that got to do with water and sewer?
Water,
Water supply.
water supply.
Okay.
I'll amend my motion to include that. Just add another sentence. Located within some
1,000 feet.
1,000 feet.
That's
Any
what's required.
discussion of the amendment? Any questions, concerns? Any other questions, concerns, or discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion carries. 9.7H5, that there will be no noise, dust, odor, vibration, or smoke generated by the facility that will adversely affect neighboring properties, in that noise, dust, and smoke. The nature of the business does not generate any undue noise, dust, or smoke generation outside of the structure. Glare, the applicant is installing additional lighting that if installed in accordance with the plans and the remedial recommendations made by J&N Lighting, will meet the performance standards of Land Use Ordinance Section 5.10.
Move to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, 9.7H6, that the physical characteristics of the site, including location, slope, soils, drainage, and vegetative cover, are suitable for the proposed use. The proposed use will not measurably change the existing topography, slope, soils, or vegetative cover of the site. Extensive landscaping of the courtyard and the customer parking area as depicted both on the site plan and detailed landscaping plan prepared by MDLA Inc. on a landscape plan set dated 1/25/18 and 2/21/18 will meet the landscaping requirements of Land Use Ordinance 5.9.
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, Tad, any issues with the landscaping plan or conformance with 5.9?
No.
Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. 9.7H7, that the use will not constitute a public or private nuisance. No additional nuisances will be generated by the proposed use. Do I have a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion carries. 9.7H8, that all other requirements and applicable provisions of this ordinance, particularly any pertinent performance standards, are met. The applicant has met all pertinent performance portions of the Arundel Land Use Ordinance in the design of the proposed, should be facilities, not activities. At least I think it should be.
Yes, it should be.
Okay, any discussion? Can I have a motion first?
I'll
Sorry.
move to approve as amended.
Okay, can I get a second, please?
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay, therefore, be it resolved that based upon the above findings and conclusions, the Arundel Planning Board hereby approves the conditional use application of Motorland Properties LLC to convert a 9,900 square foot automobile storage facility into a public auto showroom. Remove and construct a public courtyard with raised seating and reorganize site parking to accommodate increased public parking and display parking on a 4.9 plus or minus acre site located at 2564 Portland Road, tax map 2, lot 1. Tax map in the BI district. I'm sorry, it's difficult to read this and proof it at the same time. Subject to the following conditions. 1, the applicant cannot secure a certificate of occupancy for the storage building as a showroom until the applicant presents the CEO and planning office with a letter of approval from the Maine Fire Marshal. Am I allowed to suggest a change while we're going through this, or? Oh, okay, no? What?
Because the fire marshal's gonna make the decision.
No, you're misunderstanding.
Okay.
I think that 2 and 3 should both just be deleted. 1 covers the fire door.
Yeah, I agree.
I agree with that.
The fire marshal, if, as long as, what we've agreed is that if the fire marshal's happy, we're happy.
Yes,
So there's no reason for us to have 2 or 3 here.
I agree with
Is
that.
that,
Yeah,
do
do
we
we need a motion?
we need to have a why don't we go through the entire resolution and then have a motion that covers any amendments? Is that okay?
Whichever's good.
I'm trying to move it along. Okay, the 12 employee parking spaces shall be designated on the record plan and signed to reserve it for that purpose. Customer parking in front of the office shall designate on the record plan.
Just strike that last one, okay? Strike the last one.
You want to strike the customer parking? 5, the coniferous trees that were planted along the northeast boundary of the site shall be installed as originally approved on plans approved on July 14th, 2016. 6, the applicant shall make all modifications to the site lighting recommendations to comply with, if that's agreeable with the rest of the board, the site lighting recommendations by the peer review prepared by J&M Lighting and dated 4/24/18. 7, the applicant shall reimburse the town of Arundel for costs associated with the J&M Lighting Inc. peer review within 30 days of receiving the invoice from the town. 8, the applicant shall post a surety instrument in the amount of $200,000. Do we have a written cost estimate to?
Yes, we do.
Okay. As required in section 10.7 of the land use ordinance to ensure,
As an insurance.
Ensure. Make
it's
sure.
ensure, E-N-S-U-R-E. Okay.
Mr. Chair, I just want for clarification, maybe a note in these conditions that the, where it says on the plan to be seed and loam behind the building, can remain crushed stone, just so that there's no confusion.
So, for clarification.
Can't Paul just change the plan when he sends us the Mylars?
Yeah, that's fine, as long as the board's okay with that.
And the crushed stone is essentially just the drip edge off the roof line of the building, or is there additional crushed stone?
No,
There's
there's somewhere
There's
between
additional.
10, there's something like 10 to 20 feet of crushed stone back there.
It went beyond drip line.
Okay,
So if that's fine, we'll
So-
amend it for them.
so I think we should have a condition of approval, that it does stipulate that the extent of the crushed stone behind the westerly building be limited to the drip edge and the remaining area is revegetated.
To be loaned and seeded.
Yeah.
No. You like to see it, you like to see it when we walk back there many different
Oh,
times.
it's beyond the.
To the,
Now,
We have walked
the
back
point
there.
is erosion control, Marty, is to have grass growing there to keep it from just washing out, turning into a mud pit.
Oh, when we have walked back there, okay, everything else, the crushed stone, okay, was preventing anything to be washing out.
It was gravel, though. After the crushed stone, it was just gravel and sand. The idea was to make sure it doesn't wash into the stream there. That was the
Okay,
original
I
idea.
stand corrected then.
So beyond the gravel, beyond the end of the
Beyond the
gravel.
drip
Crushed
edge.
stone, and beyond
Beyond the drip
And beyond the
edge, should in
crushed
fact be loaned and seeded.
We also second that, if it needs a second. Add that on.
Excuse me, Chip, you said beyond the drip edge, you mean
Yeah.
wherever there's not crushed stone, we have to loam and seed?
Yes.
Jamie, you're the one that brought it up.
well, I guess I was under the impression that the drip edge is all that is really necessary is for crushed stone, right?
That's what the original plan of drip edge, so the runoff from the roof.
Right.
They had since, I don't think the original plan called for anything back here, my dad, but we go back, way back when, I don't think I specified what we did, but it was a gravel base, it was stable. I put the drip edge in order to control runoff coming off the roof,
Yeah.
the project was stable. If somehow it got to transfer that we should loam and seed it, and maybe that's correct, all areas not treated, should loam and seed it. So I added the note loam and seed, because that was something that should have been added to the plan. Now,
So I guess my take is.
I think they put maybe 8 feet of crushed stone back there, maybe they crushed stone right to the, I have to go look, and I will.
The drip edge, to me, is what would be necessary to be crushed stone. So I would sort of stand by my condition that you've got a drip edge, that's crushed stone, anything to the west of that would be loam and seed.
I think that's what we're asking not to do, but just,
Right.
so we all know what
Okay.
we're asking.
So I'm confused now.
What's the rationale behind not doing it, Paul?
Well, I think,
Right,
I mean, you know, obviously you have to stabilize the site, so either, you know, I thought the site was stabilized with gravel, it's been there for years and years and years. Obviously, you can stabilize the site by either using riprap, you can use pavement, you can use loam and seed. What they decided to do is, they came back here and I'm guessing right now, that I have to go back and look at that, and I could locate it. They came back here and actually, put crushed stone, and I'm just guessing, Mr. Chairman, but maybe they did that. If they crushed stone right to the wetland edge, then I would say we stabilize the site by applying crushed stone over the gravel base and thereby stabilizing the property. If they did do that, then we obviously should be loam and seeding wherever there isn't either some sort of cover for crushed stone. So that's, I believe, what they're asking.
So I would-
I'm sorry, the plan has shown that being loaned and seeded for several iterations, correct?
Yes,
But the delineation is not clear, and that's what they're looking to clarify.
correct.
What do we delineate in the field?
I mean, so
Yeah.
that's, you know, obviously I'm gonna show whatever is stable with crushed stone, and whatever isn't should be loam and seeded.
Right, the purpose
Are you
is to
comfortable doing
stabilize
that,
it, the crushed stone is doing
Mr.
that.
Planner?
Yeah, I'm comfortable.
Can you revise your motion, please?
I wouldn't have any condition of approval. If they've gotta have if it's noted on the plan to loam and seed, and they're gonna work that out with Tad in the field, then I would leave it vague.
Good, then leave it the way it is, okay, all right. Are there any other, comments, changes, nits on the, approval resolution?
Yes.
We're gonna eliminate 2 of the points.
I need a motion.
Mr. Chairman, before you do that, I would just say that there's 2 Mylars with the parking in the center aisle. And just wanna make it clear, Paul, that we're gonna not have the Mylar with the 2 parking spaces reinstated, correct?
That's correct. I guess I'm replotting the Mylars just so we can satisfy the loan and seed behind the buildings, and they will come back with not showing those parking places, that's correct.
With the understanding that's all the surface area, so there will sometimes be cars there, but they will not be designated as parking spots.
Yes.
Okay, will someone please give me a motion?
I still have one question for you. On the
You
discussion,
can
you
make
said,
you can make questions after we have a motion, Marty, but go ahead, ask your question.
my question is to add to it, so some clarity, okay, under the finding of the fact, because we went round and round on this. This is not a museum. That's all I'm trying to say.
Couldn't say anything in here.
I know, just a point of clarification. Because if they want to come back with the
So
idea,
you wanna add an item 10, the findings of fact.
on 9, it would be under 99 right here, what you're speaking of.
No, it'd be on the first page, findings of fact, 10. The automobile showroom and its operation does not constitute a museum so long as visitors are not charged any form of entrance fee. Something like that?
I don't know.
I'm not,
I wouldn't say turn out for fee, but just for clarification. That's what I was,
if that's not something that they have proposed in their application, then it's implied that it's not part of the application. I mean, we could make a comment that says,
if I'm wrong, just tell me.
they can't wear sunglasses in there because they haven't done it, I don't know.
Okay, I would prefer to leave it the way it is, but
Yes.
what's the sense of the rest of the board?
Yeah, leave it alone.
Yep.
Okay, agreed. Okay, can I please have a motion?
Okay, I make a motion that item 2 and 3 be removed because they have been conformed with.
Second sentence of item 4. That's being deleted.
Right.
Yep,
And the addition of 200,000
has been added.
has been added.
As amended, I'll second that.
Okay. So is the motion to approve this resolution as described on page 3? Is that what the motion is? I want to be clear.
With the proper amendments.
With including the amendments as stated.
Yes.
That's the motion. Is there any further discussion?
Yeah, I want to squeeze in there with the issue of museums, since it's brought up. And I personally have no problem with museums on Route 1. If at any point you'd like to have a museum there, it'd be worth working with the board of the town planner to see if that could be a change in the ordinance. Might not be a huge deal to do that, but in the future.
Good point. Okay, we deleted number 2, we deleted number 3.
Yep.
And item 4, the second sentence starting customer parking lot is stricken.
And is there another one after
The
that?
last one in item 8, the dollar amount is 200,000, and land use ordinance to ensure, E-N, not I-N. Are you, Jens, do you have a difference of opinion about that? I didn't ask you to ask Jens.
I would probably use the word assure, A-S-S-U-R-E.
Okay.
Right field. Good work.
Maybe not. One of my worthy colleagues might disagree with me. A couple of them out there. Great.
Ms. Gay, do you have any problem with the word choice of assure as opposed to ensure, insure,
I am fine
or
with whatever
insure?
word you want.
That doesn't sound right.
I'm sure it is good.
Let's have a vote on it.
Is there any further discussion?
Nope. No.
All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The motion carries. Gentlemen, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good job.
Thank you for your patience. Okay, now we have Ledge Cliff Meadows subdivision, final subdivision plan. Proposal to re-subdivide a 6-lot cluster subdivision. I've been through all that. Okay. We're gonna have a momentary recess while Mr. Lowry steps out.
I'm gonna keep going without me.
Oh, no. Where are you, Ted, where are your staff notes on, I'm sure you sent them to me, but.
You can borrow mine if you'd like.
Out, this was the only one.
No, I'm sorry, that's what was stuck to the back of the other line that I muttered about a while ago.
That's what I'm saying. Did you say?
Okay, I'm sorry, let me just, we have a subdivision plan in front of us. Staff has brought to our attention a number of items, 9 in total, which appear to be, issues relating to this project.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Are we in session or are we at recess?
We're still, it's recess.
I'm sorry, I started, Jamie said, go ahead, so I.
All right,
I
I'm
started
okay
to-
with that, I'm not complaining. I would have a request.
Yes, sir.
I would request respectfully that the board would table our application. And I think the ordinance says we have to be back in 30 days. I would ask for 60 days, because some of this stuff is gonna take us a little time to put together. Some of these agreements take time, they have to go to different attorneys, back
Actually,
and
let's
forth.
get, I'd like to get the board members if possible to consider that. Okay, Phil, for Jamie's benefit, I apologize to.
Okay, I'd ask,
The short, could I summarize?
go ahead.
The short version is that the applicant recognizes that there are items that are necessary for final approval, which we do not have yet. And he respectfully requests the board to allow him 60 days to provide these items and come back to us for a vote of approval. Is that correct? For final approval. Tad, what is the 30-day?
I think the ordinance says 30 days, we have to be back, or else we're done forever. And I don't,
30 days, when does that clock start ticking, Tad?
Starts ticking
probably
when you,
starts ticking tonight, doesn't it?
it ticks when they determine your application complete, that's.
We have 2 attorneys, and we have reporting, and we have
I know,
a lot of stuff to
Phil,
do.
believe me,
But if we don't
The-
deem the application complete,
You already did.
Is there a,
is there any way we can rescind that, hold on, Tad?
yeah.
Time out. Is there some way we can vote to rescind that determination of completeness and start over, in essence, on the application?
I think that that the proposal that Mr. Labby is making is within the parameters of the ordinance that allows additional materials to be supplied. The planning board does have the authority to extend the 30 days to whatever both parties agree to.
so beyond 60?
It can go beyond 60. If you want to give him
May I
90 days and he does it in
recommend that
45,
we-
terrific.
May I recommend that we give you 90 days that's not to say that if you get it all done in 28 days, you can't come back then.
That was gonna be my question. We can, if you give us 90 days, we can come back sooner if we're ready.
Yeah, I would much prefer to leave
Okay.
you.
Leeway.
Right.
Yeah, and Ted, is this provision, is it truly an effort to protect the applicant from the board just, unnecessarily languishing a project or allowing a project to languish?
That's why we have those limits as to
Right,
to prevent
so-
the board from
so-
languishing on projects.
Given that this is a request by the applicant to do that, I don't see where we would have any issue with it.
Well,
I think
Mr.
the board said
Larry, would
like
you
all
make
that.
a motion, please?
Then I move to accept the applicant's request to allow a 90-day extension to come back in front of us for final subdivision approval with all of their legal documents intact.
I second that.
Who seconded that?
Okay, again,
We all did.
We do that.
Yeah, go ahead.
We've done it in the past.
I think the other thing that we're waiting on is DEP road.
Yeah. I mean, that's-
Besides the lawyers, it's the state,
Why-
the state,
why
that's
don't
why we
we
didn't want to
ask
clarify
the
that.
applicant? Mr. Labby, do you have this document, the 9 items that?
Yes,
that-
I do.
Okay.
That was my reason for asking.
Are you you and your representatives and experts in agreement that all 9 of these things,
Can be completed?
are necessary to complete the application?
Yeah, we have verbal agreements, we just need to get them in writing, recorded, and.
Okay,
forward
but
on to the board.
the point Mr. Bergen is trying to make is, do you dispute that any of these 9 items should be part of your application?
I think, Phil, if I may, I think item number 9, requiring a state permit for the MDOT construction entrance.
Yeah,
So
that-
if you're saying that's okay, then we're gonna have the DOT entrance permit in hand, already coming back, which I'm glad to do. But I know Phil was a little bit apprehensive to do that, because he didn't wanna lose his existing MDOT curb cut. So I'm just wondering, I think that's what he's trying to ask you, so I'm just paraphrasing, I guess.
Well, this explicitly states the applicant has requested that the MDOT street operating permit be deferred until after the final approval, since the applicant must first surrender his current Ledge Cliff Drive permit.
Correct.
So I think that addresses, if it doesn't address your concern, tell me.
No, I think that's what we're wondering, so we're gonna submit items 1 through 8. Item 9, which is the MDOT permit, and once we get final approval, we're gonna submit that the next day. I've actually already filled out the permit, it's ready to go, just Phil's apprehension of turning it in, so.
Well, but the stormwater permit, wetland
That's already been
operation
received.
permit, Maine Department of Transportation.
Yeah, the stormwater permit's been received, there's no really wetland alteration permit, we're only filling 2,000 square feet of wetlands for
Paul,
a slight crossing back here.
Paul, do you have any correspondence with the DOT that would indicate that they are agreeable to the alternate location?
I have not personally, I know Ben has. and-
So, in my experience, and typically like you're talking about with the DEP permits, final subdivision approval is when everything other than the town approval is all set, and because, we're approving that subdivision, property boundaries, things that are legally binding.
Correct.
So we wanna make sure everything is in fact 100% complete. Now, that being said, I don't want you to feel like you're jeopardizing your existing subdivision approval in lieu of the new one, but I think it would be wise to present some information, to, at least in my opinion, to the board that you're not gonna have some kind of surprise by the DOT after we've given our final subdivision approval.
If you give your final subdivision approval subject to
You're right.
DOT entrance, we can't start work unless we have it.
You can't start work, but you could legitimately take a subdivision plan and record it in the registry of deeds that have specific lots that have been developed based on the right-of-way that's described on the plan.
And I think we could probably say that we won't record a subdivision plan
Something,
for such
yeah.
time as we get the DOT entrance
Right.
permit. So if we got approvals, we would not record the plan, because that doesn't make sense, right? Then I gotta
Right.
record the plan.
Exactly.
You know, even though it would become void because we're not satisfying the criteria, but
Right.
I'd have to go void the plan.
Through the
So yeah,
chair.
we could do that.
Through the chair, question.
Question, Paul,
Sorry, Ted first.
how long does it take to get, well, DOT take to?
I mean, the first one I did, I think it took like 2 weeks, but I don't, you know, I've been talked to one of the owners about having a curb cut at this location, which is actually a little worse for sight distance. I can't imagine that DOT wouldn't jump on instead of having 2 curb cuts, 1 curb cut. But I don't know how long to do, I'm gonna guess 30 days, but
Okay, because the question is, remember, we're getting a tight window there because you got 90 days to return.
record, yeah, no, I think we're well before 90 days.
Okay, I just wanted to give that warning
Paperwork's all
out right
filled
now,
out, it's
so
just
that
a
you knew
matter
that
of-
constraint is there. Okay.
Marty?
Yeah, Phil, question. Where we have an existing driveway now on your property, okay, that's still a residence use, is it correct?
Residence use right now.
Okay, will that be taken away if you get the new curb cut?
When the new curb cut is in and the road is in enough, that driveway goes away.
Okay, I'm just trying to ask instead of,
Either way,
you know, what I mean,
Either way we do the curb cut,
yeah,
that existing driveway goes away.
okay, but so the tenant still has,
Tenant still needs access.
that's why, that's why,
It won't go away until the road is beyond his place where he parks, then he'll have a driveway coming out.
okay, that's the only reason I was asking that kind of question.
Okay.
Hold on, I just have to ask that, I'm confused. We require that DOT permit before final approval, but you're asking to approve it without having the DOT.
What I'm asking, I guess what I'm looking for is an absolute guarantee that this road will be approved if I lay down a DOT permit. That's what I'm looking for.
The
you
issue,
have
Tom,
But we
the
need
issue-
the absolute guarantee that the DOT permit would.
We understand,
be
Tom,
approved.
the issue is that he currently has DOT approval for egress onto Route 111 for the property. He doesn't want to lose that.
I understand that, but but the plan doesn't say that. So we'll be approving the plan without having,
Well, I think the plan will be modified to say a DOT construction engineer permit shall be supplied, and also this plan will not be recorded until such time that we get the permit. So, you know, we'll add some notes to the plan, and I think that makes sense, to add something there, you know, that says we still need it.
I don't wanna get in the way. I know exactly the dilemma, but I'm just wondering how we could approve it without having approval from the state that.
Well,
would be
I
allowed.
think the mitigating circumstance is that he has an approval from the state for an entrance that's 1,500 feet
Yeah.
down.
But that's not what we're approving now. We're
No,
approving
but, I
it
mean-
at a different 50 feet away.
And that's why I think they need to do a little homework and come back to us before that 90-day window and say, this is, we haven't gotten an official approval because they don't wanna lose, he doesn't wanna lose his current entrance permit unless we give an approval.
I also would encourage the applicant and its representatives to do everything you can short of getting that permit prior to coming back to the board.
No, we will. I mean, if we can work with DOT.
But it's in your best interest to do that anyway, so I'm not.
Would the DOT
That
give
is
you
our
a
intent.
They might.
conditional permit
They
that,
might.
you know, one gets approved and the other one immediately goes away?
Right, I think that's what I mean, we haven't
Right.
discussed that with DOT, I just know Phil's concerns, but certainly we will talk to him about
I mean, that would be ideal.
Absolutely.
Right.
Okay, so let's,
Yeah.
okay. Do we have I'm sorry, I've lost track. Do we have a motion?
For the 90-day, yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, do we have any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor of giving the applicant 90 days or less to complete the application and come back to the board with a request for, no, we haven't had a public hearing either.
Yes, we
Yeah,
did.
we just
We
did.
did,
We had
sorry,
tonight.
We just didn't, never
I
mind,
know.
sorry. It's a lot going on tonight, trying to keep track of it. Okay, so we had the public hearing. So we're giving the applicant up to 90 days to come back to us for final approval. Okay, no further discussion, comments, concerns? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Hearing none, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Levy.
And Mr. Fitzpatrick, have a good night, though.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is Paytech Corporation Contractor Yard Conditional Use Application. Proposal for the establishment of a contractor yard 2 operation for an existing paving contractor business located on an interior 5-acre parcel, tax map 37, lot 8A, served by the private way Stilton Lane, with access off Senate Road in the R4 district. William Stilton is the owner and applicant, and Atlantic Resource Consultants are the applicant's agent. I am unable to participate in this as a board member because I am an abutting property owner downstream of the applicant's property. So, Mr. Lowry, I am going to ask you to serve as board chair, and I'm going to recuse myself and turn my phone off.
Ted, given that I did not print my own copies of your memo, I will need to get a copy of that with any other supporting documentation.
Perhaps you'd want to?
You may want to keep this.
I'm confused. All right.
Take mine.
Oh, you can look on with me.
Yeah, I'll look on it.
Thank you. I will open it up to the applicant to give us a summary of where they are in the context of our discussion. The last time you were in front of us in November 2017, correct?
Yes, I'm David Jones, I'm an attorney, I represent the applicant. The board requested that we come back with some additional items, which has been done, but the memo that you have from the planning staff takes issue with the methodology in which the water sample was taken and with the location of the study, the location of the vehicles that were used for purposes of the sound study. And in light of those deficiencies that the staff has noted, we would request the opportunity to revise those studies and bring them back before you vote on a determination of whether or not the application is complete.
Any comment from staff or the board on that?
Question. Do we have the right time elements so that we're not 30, 60 days or whatever, I mean, because, or is there a time element that it may be pushing? That's what my question is.
I believe we're all right right now.
Okay, that's all my only question was.
I'll recheck it one more time, Ryan, just to be sure.
Again, just like the formal applicant, they're requesting if it needed to be an extension. Do we have, that's what I'm trying to ask the question of.
I think our case is different from the previous one because you have not voted that this is a complete application.
Correct.
Okay.
So,
Okay,
until then,
that
really,
answers that.
the clock, any clock won't have started.
That's, okay, that's all I was just trying to.
Time of war. Jens, do you have a comment?
Well, I think it's a prudent request, actually,
Yeah.
given, especially with regard to the water. I did have one question concerning the noise study, but I don't know whether it's appropriate to raise that question now, or...
I'd like to know what that question is.
Okay, I thought you might. One of the things I've wondered about is, I don't know how noise conduction studies are done, and whether the measurement is made in the proximity of the equipment itself, or it's made at some distance.
The ordinance says at the property line.
Okay. So, in some respect then, that takes into account the existence of dense foliage, but in another, not so much, right? Takes into account foliage up to the property line, but not beyond it, and the effect of that on the decibel level.
I'm not an expert, Jens, but it's my understanding that the foliage doesn't have great impact on the sound.
Really? That's
Yes.
surprising to me. Okay.
Then it's really more a matter of distance than, unless there's a more soundproofing barrier than foliage.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I ask a question for free. On the noise analysis, is that something that is a hypothetical, or is it actually done while the business is in operation? If it is done when the business is in operation, was it done during the spring, summer, fall months while the paving business was active, or was it done at a time when the winter time when the paving business was not active?
I would say that would be a excellent question to ask them after they have revised their noise study.
Okay.
Right, if they've got comments that they have to address based on staff comments, I mean, the methodology is certainly up for scrutiny.
Another question I have is, as I mentioned, I'm an abutting property owner. There are no dwellings or anything on my property at present, but is the measurement on the property line all the way around the perimeter of the facility, or is it only on the property line between the facility and currently existing residences?
Mr. Jones, any comment on what's been done so far in the methodology, or?
As I understand, reading your ordinance, it's the boundary line, and whether there's a house on the opposite side of the boundary line is not a criteria.
Okay. And then I did read the staff notes about the groundwater study. I guess I can wait until a revised study is provided, but certainly water samples taken by an independent third party are necessary.
We'll discuss the methodology with the town planner before the next round of sampling takes place.
Man, I apologize, sir. My neck doesn't work well, which is why I.
No need to apologize.
I didn't mean any disrespect, okay?
I understand, yeah, appreciate it.
Okay. Any other comments from the board or staff?
Is there anything else we should look at? Well, yeah, we're gonna delay it until you take care of the methodology, just wait till then.
I think those are the two issues that this
Right.
board asked the applicant to address back in December.
Right.
So they did, and there were just some methodological changes that need to be made to eliminate any doubt about the results.
Okay,
All right, so
thank you.
Chairman, can I ask a quick question? The memo that is being referenced, available to the public, I haven't seen it.
Yes.
Okay, so just come see it?
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
I'll give you an extra if I have it.
I come see it.
Okay.
All right, is that, all, okay? So I will take it upon myself as continuing acting chair to move on to item number 5, land use ordinance revisions. Item 1, proposed amendments to the Arundel land use ordinance, discussion regarding regulations on commercial animal husbandry limitations in residential and rural districts.
I will refer.
You assume I'm gonna relinquish my newfound role.
This is an all wet.
You may find that whole permanent different than you expect.
I'm just giving you a hard time.
I'm just warning you. Be careful what you wish for.
Right, really?
Yeah, man, it's just
I figured
that,
this
that
would be an easy
one.
one to, Lazarus. All right.
Holy smokes.
We're gonna talk about methodology, I mean, that's what actually, but what were you?
What date?
I can type right and then drag it down, because it would be in the.
We had about 5 or 6 editing. Correct.
Huh?
I mean,
No,
no, I mean, that was, they were trying to throw something about horses and this and that.
Okay.
All right, well,
Tad,
wonderful partner.
we have.
Do you have additional copies of that, Ted?
Yes, I do have additional copies.
Are you Wayne?
Hi, I'm Wayne Monroe, and
Wayne.
I'm here to serve tonight. I'm an Arundel resident, and I wish to be a community advisor to the planning board with your animal husbandry review and consideration.
And you work for NRCS, right?
Yeah, when, at the appropriate time, if you wish me to brief you, I will. So just give me the charge when you're ready.
No, I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah,
I
I'm
was putting the
gonna
right
actually.
name with the comments and things.
Right, I actually, my day job is, I'm your USDA district conservationist, okay? With that, I have, I'm basically a natural resource expert. The agency is the Natural Resources Conservation Service. I've worked in 4 states, actually 5. And I am a certified nutrient management planner in the state of Maine. Anytime you want to know what I do professionally, let me know. I am here tonight as a resident and community advisor in that I only regulate federally wetlands and highly erodible lands. In that we are planners and we provide technical assistance and financial assistance for what is before you. I wish not to alienate any of my customers, some of which are in this town. That's why I'm not here tonight as under my official professional hat. I am here as a community advisor. And certainly anything that I have done, Tad approaching me during my official daytime job, including some email, that's professional from my job and my duties.
Okay, let me kick this off with, I received a letter as chairman of the planning board from, Mark Burnett. And, he points out that animal units on different soils and foliage is not the same in the entire town. He mentions multiple farms which have been farmed for over a century. I would venture to guess that most areas in Arundel that are being farmed have been farmed for several centuries. And he talks about acreage of the farms that he's mentioning are 300 to 400 acres. That there aren't too many, or aren't that many of those. If a person has a 2-acre lot, it cannot be measured at the same rate even if the soils are suitable. He has been talking with Wayne, and like the gist of it is that Mr. Panette's farm should be A-okay, but people with trying to farm on 2 acres are not. Summarize it if you want to look at that. We have notes from the town planner and a revision of what we discussed the last time around. I don't recollect the date, I apologize, for the last time we discussed this. There are some changes that have been made which we discussed, and there have been some changes made by the town planner, which I don't believe we did discuss.
Correct.
And town, I don't know if the board is agreeable to start with things to decide, or if you want to start with the proposed ordinance language. What's your pleasure, gentlemen?
Go with the ordinance?
Yeah.
I think, so question along this line is, that you said ordinance language, because before we had it classified by weight. Okay, this is by not, what is
Part
proposed.
of the last time we talked about this, we spent an hour on that topic.
Yeah, that was 2 weeks ago.
And we,
This is not,
we agreed to move away from the animal unit concept and the weight concept to basically a critter concept.
okay, that's what I was trying to
Okay,
say, I mean,
yeah, okay.
Mr. Chair, at the appropriate time, I wish to educate the planning board a little bit on that subject matter.
Okay, you can do so, but now it's not the appropriate.
That's right, that's fine.
I do have a question as far as those stock points go. It'd be good if it would be noted someplace on the table or someplace where this was coming from. If it's like, it's, on agriculture or whatever would be, standards. Is it? I don't know where they're coming from, and I would guess maybe others would question what this is all about. It'd be nice to.
Tom, let me ask you a question. In the 100+ pages of the land use ordinance that has numbers for this, that, and the other thing, widths of roads, for example, do we cite the sources as to where those come from?
We will do that quite often. We'll have, I can't think of any, but we will state the source of that, of those standards,
guidelines.
the guidelines. Mr. Chair?
If I
Yeah.
may, I believe I did cite all the sources these came from in previous, in one of your first or your second iterations that I gave you, to realize that I wasn't making this stuff up. And there was
Oh,
a huge swing between one area and another area. You know, if you go to California, you get a totally different one than you get to North Carolina or Maryland, and so in some cases, where we could find consensus among various sources, we set it down, like equines, 2 per acre, that was pretty uniform. Cattle were 2 per acre, and Wayne's educated me on that one, and so is Mark. Goats were somewhere in between, red deer, not enough guys do it, but you know, the llamas and alpacas went everywhere from 1 acre to 6 per acre.
So, well, I think Marty just pointed out what will help you feel better with, on the second page, 4.C, adjustment of stock points, it does say that, that it does refer to some type of, agencies.
Yes. Well, it's referring to, it's trying to provide sort of a way of adjusting the stock points based on field conditions.
Well, I know my point here is just like we had the opening, public hearing about roads. I think down the road, we're gonna be accused of making this stuff up and making their lives more difficult, and that's not our intent. We're looking for something to base our decisions on, and it would be nice if we could say, well, this is common across the country based
Okay,
on.
Tom, the difficulty that arises when you do that, and the difficulty that arises when the
Hold on,
USDA
if I could, rather than point out the difficulty, I'm just curious,
no,
what agencies these are coming from, maybe, a community advisor could help us on that. But I think it would help us, forever,
I think
for the residents to see, oh, okay, it's not just Tom McGinn that's making this stuff up to make my life difficult. This is
Well, I think Tad has done that in the past.
Yeah.
That's a good point. But I do understand your point. From my perspective, one of the challenges that we face in doing this is that many approaches to these problems are based on commercial livestock operations as opposed to call it either a hobby farm or a gentleman's farm, which is what we have predominantly in Arundel. And an example of the difference would be that in Wayne's email, he stated that farms don't have multiple species on them. I can tell you from personal experience and knowing people around town in Arundel, in Arundel, it's normal to have multiple species. And that's not the exception, it's the rule. And so what I'm trying to get at is, if you're talking about livestock ordinances for Texas, they're not relevant, because Texas is talking about ranches that might have 2,000, 5,000 head of cattle on them.
I'll put my concern aside for now, just so we can move forward, but at some point, maybe it's worth looking at.
Well, Tom, I understand that. Let me also point out that if we don't, maybe we don't get there, but if we don't get this nailed down by 10 o'clock tonight, it's not gonna get to town meeting, it's not gonna get that town meeting in June. Okay, and my personal thought is that whatever we do is not going to be perfect, but I'd rather have something than nothing.
Let's move on then.
You got 45 minutes to do it.
Okay. So the purpose is to establish standards for domesticated livestock. And one of the questions that Tad raises, if I can address the questions, is, are these standards universal? Should these animal husbandry standards be applied to non-commercial operations? After all, manure management and carrying capacity of livestock on land is the same regardless of whether the operation is for profit or for home use.
Yeah.
I agree with the planner's assessment and trying to determine whether or not a livestock operation is purely for amusement of the neighborhood kids or a money-losing business, but you're trying to lose as little money as possible to one that actually has positive cash flow. I think it doesn't, from my perspective, it doesn't matter. We should be writing standards that apply to all of those. But what do you guys
Including
think?
including a 2-acre lot with 4 ducks or 3 chickens or? Really?
But that's allowed.
Eat my pigs, yeah.
Well, I'm just looking at the minimum lot size. We have 10 acres here. How does,
Well, we're gonna talk about that.
okay.
Those numbers would change depending on the answer to that question.
Yeah, this will work,
Yeah, they would change depending on the answer to that question. Right now, we've been operating, animal husbandry is considered in the existing zoning ordinance as a commercial operation. I mean, it's for profit, or at least the product is sold to the public, let's put it that way. That's what it's defined.
And on that basis, that's why there's
In other words, what
USDA.
you're saying, the way it's written right now, it doesn't apply, there are no restrictions whatsoever
That's correct.
on someone who claims that they're not.
That is correct. And we have places that are overwhelmed with animals right now on small lots.
And
But that is like, seem to be biting off more than they can chew, so it's what happens. Chewing is just the commercial side there. But it's a question that has to be asked. Because the impacts are the same.
And Jens brings up a very good point, which I personally think having a minimum acreage for large livestock is reasonable, whereas having a minimum acreage for ducks really isn't.
Well, but I would concur with that logic in other parts of the ordinance, where, one of the performance standards for animal husbandry, if there's gonna be a strict interpretation of, if you've got some kind of animals that you're, selling eggs or eating for your own use, the way this is written is that anybody that is deemed to have animal husbandry would have to go through and have a licensed nutrient management plan.
Well, let's explore this a little bit further. Let's talk about a problematic,
Well, but,
to me. And the R1 district is 1 acre lots, is that correct?
That's right.
well,
Okay,
minimum 1 acre lots.
I understand, but you got a 1 acre lot. Should someone be allowed to have
Chickens?
10 chickens that they claim are for their own use on a 1 acre lot in R1? I don't know the answer to that, I'm asking the question. Or do we, there is an alternative here, which is for tonight to say, we're going to address commercial and ignore
That's what we're gonna do.
the
I
non-commercial.
think we've got to.
We have to at this point.
Yeah,
Okay,
let's
okay.
just stay focused.
Okay, that's fine. I'm all in favor of that, just, okay.
Mr. Chair, could I ask a question?
Yes,
At what time would you allow me to provide input?
when we ask you?
Well, okay, because the subject is relevant, and it could help you as you go while these questions are coming up. If I may have 10 minutes of the floor to discuss a few of these issues. 1, animal unit. 2, the density that you have proposed. And, what you're talking about, animal husbandry, commercial farms and all that. it might be beneficial that you be armed with that knowledge as you go through the proposed ordinance.
Okay. Why don't we go, if you'll allow us to go, well, what's the board's pleasure? You wanna get a 10-minute lecture?
I would say half of 10 minutes.
You got 5 minutes for me? Okay. Is that a consensus, or?
Go ahead.
Well, that's my opinion.
Yeah, I think a little bit, I'd ask for a little bit more.
Yeah, we have a professional here.
Yeah, let's hear it, let's hear it.
Okay.
Okay. Sorry, I was under the impression we needed to, I mean, what,
We do, but this is the guy who writes the plans. and-
I've reviewed everything you're proposing in significant detail, okay? This is with a lot more notes that I'll present. And I have here the breakout of livestock weights. Your revised ordinance that I just looked at is getting much closer in the ballpark, okay? You've done quite a bit of homework, I think, since the first release.
Thank you.
And Mark, you're actually have enough. You'll get,
I'll steal
you
it.
can have that copy, yeah, I'm sure Tad will give you his copy when he's done, okay. So, in the industry, all across the United States, recognized by any agency, any nonprofit, any industry support entity, animal unit is the common definition. One animal unit equals 1,000 pound equivalent of any combination of livestock. So Chip, to your point, if you had 4 calves, feeder calves at 250 pound, that would be one animal unit. And if you had a diversity of across town, let's say you had a goat, 5 goats, or actually young goats at 100 pounds would be 1/2 of the animal unit. And then if you could make up another 500 pounds, then you'd have one animal unit. All right, so when you go through, you can get a different class here. I cited some examples on your handout. A red deer at 250 pound, it would take 4 would equal one animal unit. So 2 red deer and 2 calves would be one animal unit, citing your point. Okay, so I firmly believe that you're not far off with your comprehensive approach. In this town, you have a lot of small animal husbandry, because people want chickens, they want fresh eggs, they want produce local, they want to know where their food comes from. This is a trend that's happening all over the country. We also have very large commercial farms in this town. One of the producers is right here, and hats off to Mark Panett in the 3 farms that he operates. He's doing an excellent job. He's following all of the USDA standards. He has a comprehensive nutrient management plan, which is the highest plan in the land, which is agreed upon by the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, USDA, NRCS nationally. Maine was one of the few states to get on board early with nutrient management plans in 1993, where not every state even has that state of Maine nutrient management requirement. I suspect Tad has educated you on that. All farms with more than 50 animal units, 50,000 pounds, are required to have a state of Maine certified nutrient management.
I'm sorry,
It's good for 5 years.
time out. What is the regulation and what is what's the cutoff, please?
Under state of Maine nutrient management rule, passed somewhere between 1993 and 1995, all livestock farms with more than 50,000 pounds of animal units, livestock equivalent, made up of any combination, which 50,000 pounds at 1,000 pound equivalent to one animal unit equals 50 animal units, are required to have a certified nutrient management plan which measures land acreage and manure volume generation to assure that it's all in calibration. You're required to have soil tests every 2 years, you're within every 2 years, before you build or make the plan. You're also required to have a manure test, because you're really calibrating, does that given land unit that is a livestock farm with more than 50,000 pounds or 50 animal units, do they have enough land? Are they land rich or land poor based on the amount of manure that's generated? Quickly, I'm going to tell you that one adult milking cow or beef cow produces 1.5 cubic feet per day of manure, which rounds out to, on average, between 82 to 100 pounds per day of manure. You do the math, that's 1 cubic yard every 18 days. The average front-end loader bucket, commercial front-end loader, like Phil Abbey was here, that he operates is about 1 cubic yard in size. So, one cow every 18 days will fill one of his loader buckets. On an annual basis, that would be 24 of those loader buckets, or 21 tons per cow. A lot of manure, right? So we need to know through the Nutrient Management Act that do you have enough land to take all that manure? If not, it's required that that manure be exported to operations that compost or elsewise. It must be firmly documented where it's going. Also in that rule, which is quite apropos to this town, because we are one of the beautiful communities, we appreciate our rural value and community and our excellent resources. If any farm with any amount of livestock, 1 animal unit, 10 animal unit, 20 animal unit, receives a complaint, would be a complaint to the town, to Jim Nagel. There used to be a rule here, the 3 nose test. Let's send out 3 noses, right? Good rule. I don't know if that's still adopted. Stacy Wentworth, I believe, adopted that. Anyway, 3 nose tests. If that generates a nuisance complaint to the State of Maine Department of Ag Conservation Forestry, Matt Randall, who is the nutrient compliance officer, when they come down to inspect, the first thing they're going to ask, if it's 2 animal units, do you have a nutrient management plan? If the answer is no, they're probably going to get written up and get a violation. Or they're going to say, well, you better get a plan quick after they do the inspection. What are the practices happening on that land? I advise, because Southern Maine has such a population density, my service area is Cumberland and York County. I have more than 60% of the population in the state. I have 22% of the farms in the state in my service area. I advise livestock farms with more than 20 animal units, it's in their best interest to have a nutrient management plan for that protection, just to, in case you get a complaint. We know that we have an invasion here of influx of population, and a lot of potential complaints, social issues, odor, that's one of the things that has to be addressed in the plan. But I feel that you should adopt the common unit as the animal unit, 1,000 pound equivalent. Anytime a plan is generated, or anyone who has experience with nutrient management would ask for an inventory of what the livestock are. And then the numbers and the weight would go with it. You do the simple math. If it's 22,500 pounds, it's 22.5 animal units. It would adapt to your stocking method pretty easily. Because I laid out a set of
I would like to interrupt you for a second. I've got a question. In this standard animal unit concept, are animals actually weighed, or is this a presumed weight?
It is based on average known weights based on veterinarian science, and that's what I put before you.
Okay, so there really isn't a whole lot of difference between assigning points to horses and calling it stocking points as opposed to using your animal unit.
No, what I'm suggesting is you can keep your stocking point creative formula. You just need to make an adjustment and go with one stocking point equals one animal unit.
I don't understand that.
You don't understand that dialogue? Okay.
No, okay. Move on with the rest of your lecture, please.
Well, education, please. I'm not here to lecture you. I'm here to give you some common understanding so that this town can do their best to adopt a really good ordinance. I'm not here to lecture you. I told you, I'm a citizen of this town. I've lived here for more than 20 years, and I value this community and the natural resources here. So, any questions about this animal unit concept? Okay, that's good. So, that's how we have that. And again, I'm recommending we go with an adoption of animal unit because it's common. If you talk to the state of Maine, they show up responding to a Jim Nagel complaint on a farm that says that they're following your ordinance. He's gonna know when he goes in, he looks around, okay, there's 2 red deer, there's 2 feeder calves, boom, that's 2.5 animal units. He's not gonna have to go over to Tad's office and say, Tad, I need to now have a clear review of this ordinance and what the stocking point equivalency is and all that. So that's point number 1. Common unit across the land. If DuBois Brothers shows up to present their new comprehensive nutrient management plan, and they say that that plan's good for 1,000 animal units, the board's gonna know. 1,000 animal units times 1,000. Is that 10 million? Whatever. You're gonna know. Any technical advisors that service this ordinance are gonna have common language. Okay? My second point, consider 1 stocking point equals 1 animal unit. And then we go to hobby or backyard farms, which is something that you really do have to consider. What is the capacity? I back up, I did a little study for Mark Panett. He was the first one that approached me because he, wants to know, is he in the right? He's in the community. He has one of the best managed farms that I've stepped on. And I Googled the subject, and I believe he was researching for this planning board. All across the Northeast, I came up with a study and a survey. Average across the Northeastern states, keep in mind, big states, small states, New Hampshire, Vermont, New York, Pennsylvania, Maryland. Average of 1 animal unit per 3 acres. 3 acres, you can carry 1 animal unit, was the average. Now, some was more intense, some was less. You have all these management variables. You have, I'm not going to go into that. You know what those are. So, soils, you have temperature, solar degrees, you have, forage quality, quantity, management, all that. So, and noting that, you could, make a frame of reference, where do we stand, okay, on an average. Now that doesn't presume any conservation's been applied. There's not that many states that have the nutrient management law, which really balance everything out, the total manure, the total land, and all that. So, I believe, keep in mind, a USDA commercial farm is $1,000 of farm income. USDA definition, $1,000 of farm income. So, it probably is annually. I didn't want to throw that out there, but I believe there's an annual note there. In my business with federal programs, anything that does get audited, a given farm can earn up to $900,000 of USDA farm benefits, but over the life of a farm bill. But we audit based on Schedule F of the IRS. If a farm's applying using Schedule F, that means that they're introducing income, but that's different than what the USDA definition is. So when I look at your Arundel, we have these on top of each, real small, 1 acre backyards producing chickens. Little tiny goat farms are popping up on half-acre house lots, so on and so on. You know this. You're the planning board. I believe that you could stick with the national minimum if you're looking at an average capacity, I mean the Northeast survey minimum. That's without a nutrient management plan. If you have a farm, that's without a nutrient management plan. Other things considered, your zones and so on, just a quick rule of thumb, you could stick with that 3 acres in one animal unit. A farm, that is a farm now, more than $1,000 income. A livestock farm, for that matter, producing livestock, that has a state of Maine certified nutrient management plan, I think easily you could go with 1.5 acre as the minimum for the animal unit. I think when you really drill into that and you have a farm that wants to exceed that capacity, 1.5 acre for one animal unit, you make a condition of inspection of the nutrient management plan and the set of conservation practices that is being applied on that farm. As I said, Mark Purnett has one of the most intensive managed beef farms around because he has a comprehensive nutrient management plan. Number 3, third round, every 5 years it's renewable. I'm sorry, Mark, am I revealing too much about your farm?
No, I'm not making any money, so that's fine.
Okay, so,
We erase these after a while, don't
and he's applying all these practices. He has heavy use areas, he feeds sustainable produce.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Okay.
In the interest of time, what I've got so far is that you strongly recommend that we revert to the animal unit as the unit of measure, that we have a requirement of 3 acres per animal unit unless there is a certified nutrient management plan, in which case it would drop to 1.5 acres per animal unit.
Without a plan?
Right.
3 acres per one.
Yes, that's what I just said.
Okay, sorry, I did.
Is there anything else specific?
Yes. Yes, well,
Now,
also.
let me ask you, I'm gonna ask you a question.
Yes.
Point blank, in your email to us, you made the statement that, or emailed the Tad that there should not be any livestock in the R1 whatsoever.
Let me read, I wanna go back to my exact.
It's okay, I'm not actually asking a question, I'm making a point.
Right.
And we're going to discuss that. Do you have anything else, because you've taken 15 minutes.
No, I do, I would like to wrap it up. Would you like to give me a minute or 2 minutes to wrap up?
2 minutes is max,
Okay.
yes.
That's good. I should think R1 and R2 should prohibit any large animals unless an appropriate sized adjacent agricultural lot with farm infrastructure exists with all the proper management. So there's more to it than just, none in R1, R2, so. Anyway, going to my final conclusion, if you then went with 1 stocking point per 1 animal unit, you would simply just have to reverse a little bit of your math on the proposed ordinance. Actually, I just did a quick review of this. You're not bad. For instance, if you go animal husbandry, it might shake out, this is something you have to figure out, but 1 acre might equal 0.2 animal units. Minimum, 1 acre. Anything beyond that, a few chickens or something, you may either have to grandfather, but then you have, a range up, if you've got 5 acres, 1 animal unit. Because think about 1 adult cow, which is 1,400 pounds, and they threw that on 1 acre, you got a mess. You got 21 tons of manure on your well. So I think if you just do a little conversion to that, 1 stocking point equals 1 animal unit, and then just rearrange your table, you're good. I think that most of your units here are pretty good. You may have to adjust the cattle and the equine a little bit. But the rest of them equal what I had just mentioned. 0.2 AU on the chickens would equal the 50 per acre, right off this weighted scale. But it would be 0.2 AU for chickens per acre. I think what you have would work. Okay, now I'm going to take my final minute. Any language that you adopt regarding my agency I wish to be right. It was wrong in the equine standards. It's not exactly right here. I did send that to you, Ted, the correct language. But the language here under page 2 of 4, adjustment of stock points for construction of livestock feeding and manure collection stations approved by the Natural Resource Conservation Service. We have no, automatic link to approve manure collection stations. A farm that's working with us through one of our programs, we would do that. So what you could say though, construction of livestock feeding and manure collection stations according to USDA Natural Resource Conservation Service technical standards and specifications, which are available on the web to the entire public. But this way, the other way, it would be an unfunded mandate of my agency to go inspect every livestock feeding manure collection system. And that's not in any legislative authority for my duties.
The legislature does it to us all the time. We're just
No, I know, and I realize that. I just wanted to help the town, And I did not find any offense with the equine. I just sent it through with the language would be appropriate that way.
Okay, can we?
Yep, I'm good, and I'm here if you want questions, I'm good. So, if not, link it through to Ted and
All
we
right,
should.
so, gentlemen, back to things to the side. Are we in agreement that for right now, we are going to be addressing only commercial operations?
Yes.
Okay, item 2, minimum lot size for livestock raised in residential districts. I would point you to the table on page 2. Maximum stock points by zoning district. TAD has put in 10 acres for R1, R2, and 15 acres for R3. I would make the comment that R2 and R3 need to be the same number for the reason that the comprehensive plan calls to combine the two, so let's not screw that up. And I think that having a minimum lot size in R1 is something we should talk about. Is 5 acres the right number? Is 10 acres the right number? What do you guys think?
Well,
this is before someone is allowed to have a commercial livestock operation of any kind.
is it proper to inquire, what is there in existence right now? Can we know what kind of impact that we're gonna have on existing operations?
Yeah, Pamela Drew has 5 acres for the llamas.
Is there any other operation we can think
I'm
of?
sure that there are other operations that I'm unaware of, but my personal feeling is that 10 acres is onerous.
10-acre requirement?
A 10-acre requirement, and I think that I fully recognize that somebody having too many cows on a 5-acre lot in the R1 is going to produce all kinds of problems. I'm not aware of any problems like that have occurred recently. Tad, are you?
Aware of any problems? We don't have any problems per se that I know of in the R1 district right now. I think we have potential problems on small lots that I see around town. And Wayne's seen them around town too, and I think Mark has too. We have a mixture of different animals in a very small lot.
And I understand the concern there, but I'm just trying to figure out what that number should be before acres under R1 district.
Well, think of it this way, think of what size is, think of
And remember
scattering
that
them throughout the R1 district on 1 acre lots. Think of them up in Clearview.
I'm not suggesting that 1 acre is the right number.
Right.
I will also mention that acreage refers to the amount of land area that is used for pasturing or enclosing the livestock herds, minus wetlands and uncleared forest.
Yeah.
So it's not a 5-acre lot, it is 5 acres of farmland.
I'm persuaded by your remarks.
And I would carry it on to the R2 and R3, because why would you punish?
If it works in R1,
Right.
why doesn't it work in
Right.
R2?
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
I'm-
Where presumably you may have more buffer, so to speak, to an abutter.
Should it simply be 5 acres across the board? Should there be, I mean, in R4, the minimum lot size is 3 acres. I don't think that we should have a lower number in R4 than we do in the other 3 districts. Does anybody else?
No.
No? We thought we should.
Should we have a higher number in R4?
That's where we wanna put it. I think at the same time, we're gonna find that higher numbers are gonna be in the R4 because it's where the larger lots are. I mean,
But we're looking at a
zoning
minimum.
lots, but the actual parcels.
But we're
whichever
looking
one's the
at a
parcel.
But we're
minimum. If somebody
looking at a
has a
minimum.
5 acre lot in the R4, why would we preclude them from doing
Well, it's
animal
not that-
husbandry if we're allowing it in the R1?
More importantly, if they have a 20 acre lot and 5 acres of it is pasture and paddock, why shouldn't they be able to have 5 acres?
Well, I can see 3 acres in the R4, because it might be surrounded by others, and there are a lot of smaller lots, 3 acres, and why not let them have a few cows?
Well, I
Chicken.
also, yeah, you could do that, and I'll tell you honestly, just so you know, Wayne might appreciate this. There are other, upstate New York, for instance, where they have agricultural zoning, the minimum lot size is 10 acres. Period. Upstate New York is that way, Auburn is that way, I believe. I don't know if Clinton is, I thought Clinton was playing with something like that.
I'm gonna, yes, this is all good, and it's driven by water quality and drinking water supply.
Okay, gentlemen, what do you guys think about R4?
I like Tom's point.
It's where we want the farm to be, so
Yeah.
we just won't even
Incentivize.
They get to that.
yeah. So, and the others would be 5?
Okay, so that is 3 acres subject to the definition of acres. Okay.
So can I, and I don't wanna throw a huge monkey wrench into this, but how are we gonna draw the line at what is commercial and what is not? Is that in here?
It just says, no, the definition, current definition, as you will see on the first page, it says breeding and raising of domestic animals for commercial gain.
Okay, so, again, I'm gonna go to the hypothetical town hall, you got, 50 people there, and you got 10 of them that have a stand of $3 a dozen eggs.
Right. Right, and that's
They've
what,
got 15 chickens running around in the backyard, and they bring out a dozen eggs every few days, or every day, and do that. Does that fall under the commercial purview?
that technically could, I certainly wouldn't want to take it to a judge.
Mark,
Technically.
Mark, what's your comment?
I think a commercial operation, you'd have to have you'd have to file farm on your IRS.
Schedule that.
Yeah. That's a good point.
Otherwise, you're moonlighting or,
Right, you got home production, you got a couple dozen eggs, you
You're
want
not-
to
you're
sell
not
them before
filing
I
farm.
can't use them.
Right.
you're filing farm, you're a legitimate farmer, it's not a hobby, you're staying on the farm 24/7.
Okay, bottom
It's a
line,
bit of a-
it's,
There's some objectivity.
Yeah,
okay,
right.
bottom line, if there's a Schedule F on your income tax return, you're a commercial operation.
Right.
Is there another way we could do that, because I'm afraid of asking people for the Schedule Fs.
That's why I didn't first bring that up.
Yeah. I think
Google
automatically,
Well, can we just leave the language the way it is now and
Just get it through.
I'm sorry, but I really am
Because we got.
very desirous of getting this hammered out. Okay, going back to stocking points versus animal units. I understand Wayne's desire for a common unit of measure and not confusing people. I don't understand why someone can't look at a farm and count cows and chickens and in whatever manner they choose to measure them. I don't recall all of the details of it, but it seemed to me that we had a very good argument, very good discussion, productive one, to get away from the animal unit concept because of the nature of farming in Arundel and how it tends to be, as I said, gentleman farming more and more of a mixture of animals. And that was, my understanding is that was why we had moved away from that. But I don't know what the rest of the board thinks. I think this is important.
I have a question. From what I was hearing Wayne say, that it really is like an inverse ratio of animal units? So it's really derived from the same measurement?
Yeah, it's the same concept, it's just we thought this approach worked better for us.
Well, and no offense to this, but it was also the code enforcement officer counting chickens. So
Yeah, it's the balancing of two things. One is easier for the public to understand, and the other one's easier for the enforcement people to deal with. So which one do we wanna go with? Seems to me we gotta make a
I wanna
decision.
go with enforcement personally.
I would like to go with one, I think it makes more sense to have the public understand it.
I tend to agree there.
I would agree with that too.
But I like the animal unit ratios.
After all, the code enforcement officer, he's the expert,
Right.
we're gonna expect that he takes it in and understands it and applies it.
Big deal.
All right, we're not gonna get this done tonight.
We have May 3rd.
So I'm hearing stock points.
Now,
May 3rd, May
one
3rd.
of the comments that
There's no way
I
we can
really
get this
like
done tonight.
from Wayne's presentation is the incentive for a nutrient management plan.
I love that.
To be able to have a higher density if you go forth and you do the right practice, the right management practice in order to make your farm, make your operation less impactful.
I agree, that's
I like
a good
that.
point.
I like
Yeah.
that a lot.
Excellent
Yeah.
point.
Great.
That's
I mean,
the whole
if you get out of
reason
limit,
for the limits in the first
Right.
place. Yep.
Now, that being said, you know, he was talking about, for cattle, for instance, what, 1 per 3 acres? Is that correct, Wayne?
I had, if there was no
Yep.
nutrient management plan, and so they file a Schedule F, or their farm, commercial farm, I had 3 acres per 1 animal unit. So on that case,
So I'm assuming 1 cattle is an animal unit, you know?
one actually, yeah, to be different, because they, if 1,000 pounds,
Well,
1 cow would be 1 point, it's over here, the calculation, but,
See,
yeah, 1.4.
Does the public really understand this better?
Well, I can tell you, I'm lost on your stocking point, but if you want one
Well,
stocking
yeah.
point per 1 animal unit, think how easy that is.
Well, no, that completely,
It doesn't change anything.
yeah, it does.
You just have to redefine and make sure you didn't overload your amount. 1 stocking point equals 1 animal unit. So then, without any nutrient plan,
Time-
3
time- time-
acres.
Wait, we got it.
You do, okay, great.
Gentlemen,
You don't need me.
we're not going to get this done tonight, is the bottom line. Can we, how many people can be available on May 3rd?
We're gonna be available anyway, right?
Well, we gotta be available at 6, everybody available at 7?
Okay.
6
Six.
is executive session.
Next Thursday.
Correct.
Yep.
Yeah.
Sure. I mean, if we're coming at 6, might as well stay at 7 and get
Well,
something done.
we're gonna have more gas in the tank
Yeah.
at that time anyway. Chip, don't you think?
Yeah, absolutely. So, Wayne,
Yes.
can you be available at 7 o'clock on next Thursday, May 3rd?
Tentatively, yes.
Okay, thank you.
50,000 pounds. It's mandatory.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Wayne and Mark.
Have a nice
I'll
evening.
probably call you this week if that's possible.
Yeah, anytime, email me, I'm back at my desk.
Can you go back up to the White Mountains?
No, I'm sorry, well, my certification should be renewed in 6 weeks.
Good deal. Thank you.
A lot of snow up in the mountains there.
That's what I heard.
Yeah, have a nice evening.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thanks. Gentlemen, I'm sorry for cutting it off, I just don't see any point in.
All right, this is what we're gonna do, we'll just do it right.
Yeah.
Right?
We don't wanna rush it, we're gonna do it.
Before we adjourn, does the town planner have anything to discuss with us quickly?
Let's see.
Elizabeth Way.
Yes, well, I sent you all the latest, report from the inspector on Elizabeth Way. It's getting close, some more things need to be done on it, but, we're getting pretty close on that. I've already met with, Mrs. Cloutier regarding their internal subdivision they're doing on their project, over at Crossroads. So, that's being taken care of. They're actually gonna be selling off portions of, they're looking at dividing off the property. So we've got that worked out. Let's see what else. You will have some applications coming to you. I've not heard from the guys at Brady subdivision yet, Bracy subdivision. But I understand that they're ready to submit for the next meeting. And,
You mean the regular meeting?
next regular meeting. And we will have to make a public hearing, we have to establish a public hearing date for, the latest we can do is gonna be, May 17th. Chip, you and I discussed, maybe we need to talk to the board about that, about moving it to our May, our fourth,
Our second meeting in
second
May.
meeting of the month, and move it up to the 17th. That would allow us to have the public hearing and then forward the materials to the selectmen for them to include it in the town warrant.
Okay, so what that gentleman, what that would entail is us having meetings 3 Thursdays in a row, the 3rd, the 10th, and the 17th.
Well, could we, for the next meeting, if we are gonna meet after the legal counsel, can we have nothing else
Yeah.
on the docket except
No,
for this?
absolutely.
Yeah,
Yes,
that would be
yes.
focused.
That's fine, and the other question is,
Just this,
to-
yeah.
Well, it should be labeled as a workshop, not as a meeting.
It will be a workshop.
do we have to have a, do we have to have the second meeting in May?
That's a good question.
Right now,
Could
if
we
we
meet
look
on
at,
the-
if we look down the barrel, it all depends on, no, we don't have to.
So could we
We don't
Nothing-
have to,
nothing in
because
play, right?
I was supposed to get everything that's supposed to be on that agenda today, and I didn't get it. So-
Okay, so
So
we
we
could,
got
we
two.
could meet on the 3rd and the 17th,
And that's it for the month.
and that would be it for the month. Does that work for everybody?
That's great.
Works for me.
I wouldn't count out, the second meeting, the first meeting of the month. I think we've had this experience before, we should reserve it, and if we, adjust the calendar, the town calendar accordingly, but we should keep it in play in case we need it. Cause we don't know. You know what's
On the
happened in the
10th?
past, yeah, we should keep it in play. We don't need it, we just walk out, but
Yeah.
if we do need it, we should reserve the room and keep it in play.
Yeah, we're not hurting anything by
Okay,
keeping the room
yeah,
reserved.
I'm fine with that, okay.
I mean, and again, on the fourth Thursday, if we have the meetings this month, in May, on the 1st and 3rd instead of 2nd and 4th, keep the room reserved.
Oh, it's already done,
Yeah, right.
so I'm not gonna,
Not
it's
gonna-
impossible to delete it anyways.
Okay.
Takes
So
five
our-
years.
We're not,
deadline
can we hang out, we're gonna hang at the, town office next week then, for the entire meeting.
Right. Might as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah, we should.
Why?
Why move?
The
We're gonna
executive
be up-
session's gonna be at the town office.
Well, what if we get more people than just Mr. Panetta and Wayne?
No, we,
I need to bring Scott
I
with
think
me.
you have to bring a .3 Emily on,
Yeah, yeah.
so. See, that's the one thing that, I get nervous about the points, by the way. I think decimals will.
Supervisor conspicuously absent from such
They're
a
like solid
relevant
numbers,
topic.
not-
Yeah.
No,
That's
they
why-
don't have to be here, because they don't go by the rules, so why bother even knowing what they are?
You'd think they'd wanna come in and try to make the rule
Time
right.
out. Can I have a motion to adjourn, please?
Wait a minute,
Quick question.
Okay,
Before-
I'm sorry.
any other thing about, cottage, season cottages or anything else? And what about that driveway entrance that I asked you about on Route 1?
I've already dealt with that, and, I'm meeting.
Can you inform us?
Yeah, I can inform you that Mario basically blew in a driveway entrance,
Okay,
and it's a big one. And he's been told, stop, and he's stopped, and I'm going out next week, and we're gonna have a little discussion, and that's probably will be coming to you, because he's moved more than 100 cubic yards without a permit.
What about the is that different from the one on the Downing Road or Curtis Road?
Yeah, that's already been dealt with too, that's,
Can you inform the board of it, please?
yes, that is an attempt by certain residents on the old Curtis Road, the discontinued, non-existent Curtis Road, to come out onto Downing Road by crossing other properties. And they're putting in a driveway through there.
Do they have a permit to do that?
That is something that I've left to the code enforcement officer.
Okay.
Because that's, if he decides it's over 100 cubic yards, and it's not associated with a building permit, then yeah, it's gotta come to the planning board.
Okay.
And I will remind him about that Monday, because that's when that's in his ballpark.
Okay.
And in regard to one other thing, thank you, Marty, for bringing up, I did write it down, but didn't look. The seasonal cottages we had a very interesting drawdown meeting where there's floating the idea of, they want to request the town to allow them to use Mountain Road as a construction entrance for their project.
Oh,
Yes.
no.
They've made a huge deal with the Hidden Meadows folk, who apparently are going to get a lot out of it. Broadman's gonna redo the roads and so forth, but that's the way they wanna go out, because they don't want construction equipment going through their project in the height of the summer season. And I've already said, how many times do I have to say that Mountain Road is off limits? Unless you wanna rebuild it. If you wanna rebuild it, I don't have a problem with it. And, but I've given that to, I've told them to contact Roger about that, and I haven't heard anything back from them, except they're still proceeding with trying to make a deal with the Hidden Meadows people, so. I would imagine, if they're insistent on that, they'll be coming back to you for a modification of the permit. And I will tell them that it's refueling.
On that thought,
Yes.
Hidden Meadows, is that not residential?
That is residential.
So,
This is not a permanent entrance onto Mountain Road as a second means of egress, as a permanent method. Although you'll probably get a lot of pressure from that in time from the residents of that community. But what it is it is an attempt to get their trucks off of Patriot Way during the summer months. That's what they want. And the problem is, of course, Mountain Road, there's two problems with Mountain Road. It has no shoulders. Number two, its vertical and horizontal alignment is horrible. As you know, as you've probably gone.
Number
driving
three,
on it.
it's narrow.
Number three, it's narrow, and number four, it is Bike Route 1, Federal Bike Route 1, which means you are going to have cyclists on that, and they have a right to be that, and it's a federally designated route. So, we have multiple conflicts on that road.
A lot of residents.
A lot of residents going it too, so.
Hidden Meadows is just beyond Mark.
Yes,
That's what I was just saying, it's not that far down, but it is far enough.
yes. It's on the other side of Halls.
There's supposed to be
No.
a fire lane when it started, if I can speak.
No, it still is for those guys.
Right.
I mean, it is a fire lane for them, and they punched through there at our insistence, as you recall, you required it. And, they fought it for a long period of time, and got a few concessions from us, but, at this particular time, that's where they're going with it, and, I'm going to give it to, the Public Works Director to chew on. And if it goes even further than him, then I'm gonna say, you gotta come back to the planning board, because that's a major modification to your permit.
Would that be applied to new road standards?
Well, Mountain Road sure could use a few new.
I'm just asking,
That's for sure.
Road, I mean,
Make a motion, we adjourn.
second.
When's the town meeting
We're
date?
adjourned.
Second Wednesday of the month, of June.
We'll address